We're live. Howdy, everybody. Hope everybody's having a good day. Over on Nazis today. Well, let's hope no. Generally, I don't, not so fond of that. So we'll do our best. We'll hope for none. I tend to, so funnily enough, my real human brother is my main source of news in this for this topic. And so I tend to do this topic whenever he sends me new bad news. And over the last few days, he sent me 2 pieces of new bad news, which makes for comments or makes for good content, I guess, but there's just more bad stuff happening. I'm feeling mostly better. My voice is still not back to normal, but yeah, my real human brother does have real human kidneys. That's true. All right, well, we do have our first guest, so, oh, you know what? I don't actually think that my headphones are connected. Let's make sure that I can hear people before I bring up my guest. Okay, it says connected. Let's just double check. Audio test, audio test. Oh, nope, that's not right. This should be... Audio test. There we go. Okay, it seems to be working. Great. Let's bring up our first guest. Let's talk to Genuine.
Yo.
Genuine, how's it going? Can you give me just a moment? I need to fix something on my end.
Yeah, sure.
Much appreciated. This is almost done. And right there, and that should go right there. Just like that. Perfect. Okay, Genuine. Welcome. I hope you're having a good day.
I'm having it, but I just came here to tell you that you're brutally under mind control, you know?
I'm under mind control.
Yeah, you are.
Okay, so you didn't want to talk about the topic?
No, you're anti-science, believing the Earth is a globe and flying in outer space.
Okay, thanks for being here. Oh, hey, it's Deathless Light. What a pleasure! What a pleasant surprise. Deathless Light, how's it going?
Yeah, let's try to have a reasonable conversation.
Yeah, that'd be good. So, look, the topic today is that MAGA is anti-science. Do you mind if I ask you a few quick yes or no questions before we jump in?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, one sec. And these are just for my own edification, really. So first, would you consider yourself MAGA?
No.
Okay. Do you think that humans are the main cause of climate change, if you think climate change is happening at all?
I would say that the science is indeterminate.
Okay. Would you say that the vaccines that we typically administer to infants and toddlers, like think of like the mumps vaccine, MMR, do you think that these are generally safe and effective?
So, yes, I do. However, what we do have to specify is that what we're classifying as vaccines today don't conform with the actual experimental design of what technically classifies as a vaccine.
I'm just talking about those things like the MMR vaccine, I think it's like there's a Hep A vaccine. These are not new.
20th century vaccines are effectively vaccines.
Okay, sure.
I have very serious reservations with anything which was developed after about the year 2000.
Okay, sure. And so, last question: do you think that humans evolved from non-human ancestors?
I think it certainly appears to be that way.
Okay, great. Okay, so look, the prompt is MAGA's anti-science. My contention is that what that means. I should specify what I mean. I'm talking about a political movement, not like particular individuals. And by anti-science, what I mean is that it is undermining the scientific institutions that produce scientific knowledge, and it is disregarding or ignoring the scientific consensus when it's politically inconvenient.
I think I might agree with you on this issue, but I don't think it's just exclusionary to MAGA. I think it's something to which is substantive, both on the left and the right. And I think that we could both probably come to terms with the fact that the current way that we grant unlimited funds to the Department of Education, which in turns privileges the largest to certain pet institutions, has a very special way of ethically bankrupting the university system, so that the science that has basically been promulgated for the last 2 decades is largely trash. I can't remember the name of the study, but there was recently a meta-analysis done on the preponderance of science, where they found that 97% of the science that we actually have has some evidence of tampering or fraud in the data. And
yeah, that's like a crazy wild claim. If the claim is that 97% of published studies have some tampering,
I'll explain. It has everything to do with the publish or perish culture. So if you have a very powerful professor who has a pet theory, and if you're a student whose PhD thesis requires that you suck dick in order to go ahead and get this professor to pass you, well, in that particular instance, there's every single economic and professional incentive to skew your data to kiss his ass so you get your PhD, because otherwise you're $150,000 in debt with nothing to show.
That's a cool hypothetical, except if you're doing STEM, which is where you're collecting data, you're not paying for your PhD. Not in the United States. You don't pay for your PhD in the United States. Second, this is like a constructed hypothetical. I'd love you to give me an example of this happening.
Well, let's
even evidence that this is like common.
Let's steel man your position. Let's steel man your position. Let's make it as powerful as we possibly can before I take it out. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that the education system itself, in terms of anything past master's degree, is guaranteed free for everybody. That still has nothing to do with the fact that the vast preponderance of the root systems in terms of the scientific process, the master's degree program and the actual bachelor's degree program, incentivizes fraud at the institutional level in order for people to get their bachelor's and master's degrees. That still does nothing to do with that.
How is that related at all? Look, so whether or not, so almost no research, no serious research happens at the bachelor's level. So there's no incentive to produce, bad data, to falsify whatever.
There's a missing credibility indicator in that, and you know that. A missing credibility indicator is when you use vague and ambiguous terminology, such as there's almost no X to Y or Z, without actually indicating the source or indicating the reason why.
You haven't provided any sources for any of your data, so I don't know if you want to go accusing me of not providing sources. Look, the claim here is that the vast majority of scientific research happens at the graduate level. When you're still in school, of course, there will be research that happens when you finish school, of course. But
that's just not true.
If we're talking about student research, the vast majority happens at the graduate level.
That's just categorically not true.
I mean, you can just go look at first author publications in like any field in any STEM, and you'll find that the vast majority of them are not undergraduates, and of those who are students, the vast majority will be grad students.
That is categorically incorrect, and here's the counterfactual to that, which evidence is.
A counterfactual isn't going to provide evidence for some empirical claim.
Excuse me. Can I finish my proposition?
Sure, right, but it better make sense.
Excuse me. There's interruption number 3. The vast preponderance of all clinical research is done in laboratories by corporations that are privately funded with zero institutional ties for the purposes of developing technology that could actually be retailed for the purposes of profiteering. Nothing wrong with that. And the entire
reason why... How is that a counterfactual to my claim?
Because if you stated that the vast preponderance is done in the university...
I didn't state that. It's almost like you weren't listening.
No, excuse me. Now you're moving the goalposts. You certainly did
not moving the goalposts. I said of those researchers...
So we got you in a two-coque fallacy.
Of those researchers... Hold on, I got to mute you so I can clarify.
And we got you in a
So of those researchers who are students, the vast majority are graduate students.
Two-coque fallacy. We got you into moving the goalposts, and we got you missing credibility indicators.
How does it feel to lose?
Now, in this particular instance... Dude, you're just doing definitional retreat. You're just doing a definitional.
You literally weren't paying attention. I told you what I said, and then I repeated myself, and you've just misrepresented my views.
Criteria in order to stave off the
We're not redefining anything. You made a particular hypothetical. No, you're excused. You're excused. So you made a particular hypothetical that makes a claim about some sort of institutional phenomenon that would incentivize bad behavior amongst graduate and perhaps other student researchers. The trouble is The trouble is that you then tried to defend that with no evidence, and when I gave you evidence of the fact, or when I rather just told you the fact that the vast majority of student researchers are graduate student researchers, you then deflected to some sort of non-academic institution statement, which was completely unrelated to the hypothetical that you provided, which you haven't substantiated, or nor was it completely
that's a straw man fallacy.
Nor was it relevant at all to what I was saying with regards to the kinds of students that are conducting student research. So do you want to address anything that I've said, or do you just want to continue strawmanning me? That'd be great.
Let's go ahead and let's demonstrate every single logical fallacy that you've perpetrated in the last 4 minutes.
Yeah,
First,
sure.
let's review the discussion.
So can you repeat back to me what I said?
Hold on, excuse me.
Hold on, excuse me.
Yes,
please repeat back to me what I said, and I'll let you know if you did it correctly.
Absolutely. I originally came in and said, let us go ahead and have a reasonable discussion. You said that would be great.
You did.
You asked me a series of questions to which I've answered them. You then asked me as to what was my genuine opinion about the actual state of science with respect to the academy.
Yep.
And I said, I think that we could probably agree, and we're talking about vaccines here. I said, I think that we could probably agree that the problem is not just with MAGA, but the problem was with institutions university-wide. Now, you stated that PhDs don't pay for their graduates. I stated, let's steelman your proposition, and let's just basically extend this into the master's degree.
No, that's not what I said.
And let's extend this to the bachelor's degree.
That's not what I said. You're misrepresenting what I said again.
You then moved the goalpost and said that in that particular instance, a vast preponderance of research is done at the academy level under the PhD program.
I also didn't say that. Do you want
to which I caught you and said, you're moving the goalpost.
So Deathless, I'm going to replay the live stream.
The counterfactual is a vast preponderance of evidence comes out of corporate research.
I'm going to replay the live stream. No, you're excused. You're excused. So you made a particular hypothetical that makes a claim about some sort of. So I'm gonna replay the live stream just so you can see what I said. I said of those researchers.
We got you in a two-coke. You got fucking cooked.
Of those researchers, hold on, I gotta so I can shut up for a second. And we can replay the live stream and we can see how convincing students, the vast majority, are graduate students.
We got you in a movie. You got cooked on your own show. And you know that.
Let's replay the live stream.
Your dishonestability indicators when you use vague and ambiguous terminology. There's almost no
I'm just going to kick him. I'll reinvite him later if he wants to come back. And then we're just going to replay the live stream, so I have it replaying over here. This is like a constructed hypothetical. I'd love you to give me an example of this happening.
Well, let's just
or even evidence that this is like common.
Let's steelman your position. Let's steelman your position. Let's make it as powerful as we possibly can before I take it out.
You can't hear it? That's weird.
Say for the sake of argument that the education system itself, in terms of anything past master's degree,
one moment,
is guaranteed free for everybody. That still has nothing to do with the fact that the vast.
We have to rewind a little bit. Give me an example of this happening, where you're collecting data. You're not paying. Here we go.
Some evidence of tampering or fraud in the data. And
yeah, that's like a crazy wild claim. If the claim is that 97% of published studies have some tampering,
I'll explain. It has everything to do with the publish or perish culture. So if you have a very powerful professor who has a pet theory, and if you're a student whose PhD thesis requires that you suck dick in order to go ahead and get this professor to pass you, well, in that particular instance, there's every single economic and professional incentive to skew your data to kiss his ass so you get your PhD, because otherwise you're $150,000 in debt with nothing to show.
That's a cool hypothetical, except if you're doing STEM, which is where you're collecting data, you're not paying for your PhD, not in the United States. You don't pay for your PhD in the United States. Second, this is like a constructed hypothetical. I'd love you to give me an example of this happening.
Well, or
even evidence that this is like common.
Let's steelman your position.
So the first point is that the claim is that if you are getting your PhD in the United States in STEM, you're not paying for it. That's true.
Let's steelman your position. Let's make it as powerful as we possibly can before I take it out. Let's say for the sake of argument that the education system itself, in terms of anything past master's degree, is guaranteed free for everybody. That still has nothing to do with the fact that the vast preponderance of the root systems in terms of the scientific process, the master's degree program and the actual bachelor's degree program incentivizes fraud at the institutional level in order for people to get their bachelor's and master's degrees. That still does nothing to do with that.
How is that related at all? Look, so whether or not, so almost no research, no serious research happens at the bachelor's level. So there's no incentive to produce, bad data to falsify whatever.
There's a missing credibility indicator in that, and you know that. A missing credibility indicator is when you use vague and ambiguous terminology.
So I said there's almost no research is happening at the bachelor's level. No serious research. Of course, there are bachelor's level student researchers, but I'll clarify that in a moment.
No X to Y or Z without actually indicating the source or indicating the reason why.
You haven't provided any sources for any of your data, so I don't know if you want to go accusing me of not providing sources. Look, the claim here is that the vast majority of scientific research happens at the graduate level when you're still in school. Of course, there will be research that happens when you finish school, of course. But so the claim is that when you're still in school, if you're doing research, the vast majority of research happens at the graduate level. Of course, there is research that happens after you're done with school.
No, that's just not true.
If we're talking about student research, the vast majority happens at the graduate. If we're talking about student research, graduate level, or when you finish school, of course. But
that's just not true.
If we're talking about student research, the vast majority happens at the graduate level. If we're talking about student research, the vast majority happens at the graduate level, which is what was being spoken about with regards to this crazy hypothetical that Deathless offered with regard to, like, sucking dick to try to get your data, whatever. Like, that was in the context of student schools, right, or of student researchers. And my claim is just that the vast majority of those student researchers are happening at the graduate level. And then he brought up this completely unrelated fact that the vast majority of biomedical research, which perhaps is true, happens outside of the academic setting, which is, that's fine, but that is unrelated to the claim that was made. And then he proceeded to strawman me.
That's just categorically not true.
I mean, you can just go look at first author publications in any field, in any STEM, and you'll find that the vast majority of them are not undergraduates. And of those who are students, the vast majority will be grad students.
That is categorically incorrect, and here's the counterfactual to that, which evidence.
A counterfactual isn't going to provide evidence for some empirical claim.
Excuse me. Can I finish my proposition?
Sure, right, but it better make sense.
Excuse me. There's interruption number 3. The vast preponderance of all clinical research is done in laboratories by corporations that are privately funded with zero institutional ties for the purposes of developing technology that could actually be retailed for the purposes of profiteering. Nothing wrong with that. And the entire
How is that
reason
counterfactual to my claim?
Because
how does that have anything to do with the claim about what student researchers or which student researchers are conducting research? What? We were talking about student researchers, namely his hypothetical involved a graduate student sucking up to the graduate student advisor, the professor. And so the context of the conversation and my explicit claims were about in the context of student research. The vast majority of that research is conducted by graduate students. And then he completely changed topics to talk about private corporations. What? All right, let's see if he wants to come back up. I know he's in the comments crashing out, but let's see if he wants to come back up. Let's see. Because he was still shouting in the comments with in all caps, which is really funny. There we go. There we go. We'll send him an invite. Let's see if he takes it. If he doesn't take it, then, I guess he just doesn't want to respond to anything I just said. I guess not. I guess he's not coming. Okay, well, we'll call that a victory. And that will definitely go on YouTube. That is extremely funny. Deathless Light, how's it feel to lose? How's it feel to lose? You just got crushed. You just got folded like a chair. How's it feel to lose? All right, let's read some super chats and move on to our next guest. From the FPS Cameron with the 10 Canuck bucks, Quanta, in regards to your super serious feud, asked, who would win, a particle collider or a piece of chalk? He won't be laughing when the chalk outline is all that's left of him. Get him, Blitz. It's a great question. Who would win, a particle collider or a piece of chalk? Well, you know, I'm just saying, there's a guy, Anthony Bogorski, I think is his name, Bogorski, who took a particle beam through the head and survived, and I think he's actually still alive. Now, if you took a piece of chalk through the head at 99.999% the speed of light, you wouldn't survive. So I'm just saying. From Gretchen with the $3, W Blitzy Lamau Chef's Kiss, no newts, go ahead. Yup, we'll do that, we'll take it, I appreciate it. From Tim Bimbadil with the $5, God, I love Deathless Light. How does it feel to lose? He's so funny. He's such good content. From Chase Martin with the $2, naming fallacies like using Harry Potter spells. Bro cast two quo quay at me. From Dr. Fudge with the $5, Deathless Light makes for a wonderful listening experience. My ears love this. I said through gritted teeth. Yeah, sorry if you didn't enjoy it. You can skip past it. And from Carissa, sending 20, I think 20, or was it actually 40? I just want to double check, but it may have been actually. Oh no, it's 20. 20 is still plenty. 20 Dr. Blitz Debunks gift memberships. Now, for those who don't know, a Dr. Blitz Debunks gift membership, what it means is that you have access to a private Discord channel in the Discord server, and you also have access to my debate notes, which are basically a compilation of all of the arguments and all of the sources and the facts and the pieces of data and the papers and all these things I use for basically all of my debates, including this one, including ones on Flat Earth, including ones on theism, and so on. So now you have access to those too, and you get access to emojis in the YouTube channel. So welcome to all the 20 people who just got a gift membership. It's only like $5 a month, so make sure to keep it in mind, keep it going, you know, for next month. And if you want to join it, consider doing it. It's a good way to support me in a consistent way that gives me some peace of mind. And thank you again, Carissa. That's very, very generous. And from Tim Davidson with the $2, can we get Max America's grades again? I feel like this is a reference that I'm forgetting, which I apologize for. All right. Okay, let's bring up Legacy Polls 7. Sorry, just gotta check something. Legacy polls, you coming? In the meantime, we did just get a $10 super chat from Grimlock for hydration donation. Always welcome back. Also welcome back. Well, thank you, Grimlock, and thank you for reminding me to hydrate. All right, it looks like Legacy Polls isn't joining us. We can talk to CWMV MVP Bean. It's a long name, but maybe it's a... Bean, how's it going?
Howdy. Just wanted to say that I support Trump.
Okay.
I support Trump succumbing to end-stage renal failure. Fuck ICE and keep up the good work.
Thanks for being here, but don't do that, please. It's a good message, but, well, I mean, you know, wishing death on someone, I would never do that. But, you know, if you're a supporter, if you don't disagree, please make sure to not join the guest box. From Tim Davidson with the $5 clarifying, I was saying can we educate America, but I was using MAGA, as in to make the grades as good as possible, maximizing America's grades. Oh, I see. Yeah, no, that'd be good. Yeah, maximize America's grades again. I like that. Except we need to do it by improving educational outcomes, not by improving grades. But that's neither here nor there. The keyboard clatter is loud? Well, I apologize that the keyboard clatter is loud. That's just what my keyboard sounds like. Glug, 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 indeed. Is this guy on a radio? No, I'm not on a radio. All right, so currently there's nobody in the guest box. If you think that MAGA is not anti-science, if you are pro-MAGA and you like what he's doing with regards to all of the science cuts that he is promoting, feel free to hop in the guest box and we can talk about it. I promise I will be totally normal and nice with you unless you escalate to be a crazy person. So, you know, feel free to hop in the guest box. I won't bite your head off. There were a lot of people who were saying, you know, but the left science, but that's okay. If you want to say that the left is anti-science, that's fine. The claim is that MAGA is anti-science. If you agree with that, then we're in agreement. Now, Rivak says, anti-science, aren't they all about outer space and whatnot? And not really. They're about doing space exploration, but keep in mind, space exploration is not science. It's not a scientific thing. When Christopher Columbus was exploring the new world, was he doing science? No, of course not. He was just like exploring and science are not the same thing. Hey Blitz, I've been watching you all 4 years of my undergrad, just graduated and starting my... Well, congrats. Also, yes, I have been doing this now for almost exactly 4 years. I started in May of 2022 when I finished my PhD. So that it's possible. Very cool and very weird, but I appreciate you being here, longtime follower. From Tekka Man with the $2, make Screwworm great again. Oh no. Why are the guest boxes always so hard to keep full nowadays? Is everyone on the right too scared to debate? Oh, that's right. They always lose every debate. That's probably true. Yeah. The keyboard is terrifying to a caller who's getting fact checked. Trust me, you want it loud. It's great. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I would like to come in and argue about how both sides of politics are anti-science, pro-money. Okay, but then you're not disagreeing with me. Also, to say that both sides are equally bad as far as politics are concerned, as far as science is concerned, is like laughable. Maybe you just don't know how bad it is under Trump. But like, it's laughably bad. Ah, we have a guest. All right, let's bring in Omi from Discord. Omi, how's it going?
Hey, greetings.
How are you?
I'm doing decent. Yeah, great to meet you, Dr. Blitz.
Likewise.
Really love your show.
Appreciate that. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions before we get started?
Sure.
And it's just for my own edification. It's nothing official. So, first question: would you consider yourself MAGA?
I am not, but I'm a moderate, and there's things on both sides that I agree with in terms of right and the left. Things I disagree with.
Okay.
But the whole idea that MAGA itself is completely anti-science.
We're not there. We'll get there. Just a few quick yes or no questions, then we can get there. Okay. So first, do you think that humans are the main cause of climate change?
That's a really good question. I'm not exactly sure.
Okay. I'm sure it's a totally fine answer.
Yeah.
Would you say that the vaccines that we typically
impact?
Would you say that the vaccines that we typically administer to children, you know, think of like toddlers and infants, like the hepatitis A vaccine, the MMR vaccine, do you think that these are generally safe and effective?
I'm not sure. I think it's a complex question in terms of there's interesting points on both sides of the argument.
Okay, unsure is totally fine. And do you think that humans evolved from non-human ancestors?
Oh, I believe in evolution, like conventional evolution. Yeah.
Okay, great. Those are just the three questions. Now, look, the background is that MAGA is anti-science. Now, I can clarify what I mean by that. When I'm referring to MAGA, I'm not referring to individuals. I'm referring to the political movement as a whole. And so what that means is that these would be general trends amongst the followers of the political movement, and these would be claims made or policies pushed by the leaders of the movement. And when I say anti-science, what I mean is, again, something very specific. What I mean is that the movement rejects or delegitimizes scientific consensus when it's inconvenient, and it undermines the institutions that produce scientific knowledge. So given that definition, that meaning of what I'm saying, do you think that MAGA is anti-science? Do you think it's neutral, or do you think it's pro-science?
I think it depends, and I guess for me, I'm not MAGA, like I was saying, and I guess I'm bringing up kind of to you in terms of like what your feelings are about when MAGA says brings up the point about the left in terms of not everyone on the left believes this, but there's people on the left that say that women can or men can get pregnant. I'm interested to hear what you're positioning, what you have to say about that kind of pushback that the right makes.
Okay, but what does that have to do with the question that I asked?
Because MAGA brings that up. MAGA says that only biological women can get pregnant.
Okay, interestingly enough, that is an anti-science position. If you go look at the scientific institutions that are authoritative when it comes to psychology, sociology, when it comes to biology, neuroscience, all of these institutions in the United States, they will make the claim that sex and gender are distinct.
Yeah, that sex and gender are distinct, which is a MAGA position.
No, the MAGA position is that sex and gender are the same.
I mean, it depends upon who. In MAGA, like in terms of they recognize that there's biological sex. Like there's the extreme left says that some people in the extreme left, and you'd be a great person to give insight on this, says that actually biological sex is a construct, and that because there's intersex, which is a minority, because there's intersex, biological sex is a construct.
Why are we talking about the left? Again, the topic is about MAGA.
Okay. Yeah. Well, because the MAGA says that there is biological sex and that gender.
The left
is a
agrees
construct.
that there is biological sex. That's a standard position by scientists and by people on the left.
Yeah.
So
the
claim why are we talking about the left again? The claim is that MAGA is anti-science. I gave you an example of how MAGA is anti-science with regards to the question of gender, namely people in MAGA. The MAGA position is that sex and gender are indistinguishable, that if you are male and an adult, then you are a man. If you are female and an adult, then you are a woman, assuming you're human, of course. And in fact, that is in direct conflict with the claims made by the academic institutions and the scientific institutions even that are authoritative on these subject matters in the United States.
So what's your opinion on the idea that a man can get pregnant?
If a man and a male are different things, which is the claim of the scientific institutions that are authoritative on this subject in the United States, then yes, of course it's possible. Again, if gender and sex are distinct.
Yeah.
Which that is the scientific position. That is the scientific position. Okay. That is consistent with sociology, psychology, neurobiology, and I mean that is consistent with the data that we have.
Okay. Yeah, so just trying to learn.
That is the claim, and this is a good example of MAGA being anti-science.
Yeah, MAGA rejecting the idea of gender, which I think that's a disputable thing, and I do agree that historically, there in a lot of cultures around the world, that they do recognize. Well, actually, like in terms of like what we call trans today, like a two-gender concept in like Native American, like Aboriginal societies.
That's cool. So do we agree that MAGA is being anti-science here?
I think there's gray area, but another question for you. What do you think about that idea?
So you think that there's gray area? Is that like you're not sure if MAGA is anti-science?
I guess like I think that I do recognize the idea of there's a difference between gender and biological sex. I do
Right.
recognize that.
This is like scientifically distinguishable. These are different concepts.
Yeah.
And so, and
but then for those
MAGA
who
rejects this. So this would be an example of MAGA rejecting something that is rejecting a scientific consensus that's politically inconvenient.
Yeah.
Hence
I'm not
being
mad.
anti-science.
So yeah, I'm not the best person. I'm not trying to debate, but I'm trying to see your positioning on the situation, because we do overwhelmingly agree with a lot of things, and I really enjoy your content because of that.
Well, so then,
But I guess it's something that maybe in terms of anti-science at MAGA says that life begins with inception, and that yeah, if you abort a baby, you're killing a life.
and everybody
So I'm
agrees on
wondering,
everybody agrees on that. All of the scientific, like everybody
Yeah.
on the left. I've never met somebody on the left who thinks that it's not who thinks that a fetus or a zygote is not living.
I've
The
met
question is whether it's
I've
a
met
person.
plenty of people on the left. I'm sorry. I've met many people on the left that say that life begins with the first breath, which is interesting. That's a very like traditional kind of conservative positioning. That
So
like
what's happening
nowadays
here
a
is
lot.
a link. So this is a semantic dispute. So if we're talking about a thing being biologically alive that is distinct from being a person, from like being meaningfully a part of the world. And so often people will say, oh, we don't consider a thing alive until it's out of the womb. What they're conveying is that they're not a person. But they're clearly like biologically living cells. Nobody disputes that.
Well, I've heard people on the left say that, oh,
Can you give me an
an
example?
unborn baby. Like this is not like prominent. This is people conversations like friends of mine I went to high school with, and that kind of thing. Say that, an unborn baby is not alive because that baby is dependent upon the mother for life and sustenance and is not autonomous. Therefore, it's not alive, and that seems unscientific to me. And I do recognize that
Okay,
most
I
of
mean,
the
like,
left,
if you want to give me
you know,
examples of like random people that are A, not prominent, and are B, not accounted for in like surveying results, that's fine. But it just seems like you're giving me anecdotes, and I'm not sure how useful that is.
Okay, yeah, it is more an anecdote. It's not like I can't think of any prominent activist or politician that has that position. But yeah, I'm more coming on to hear your insights on and your perspectives on these matters, and we very much agree on a lot of things. Of
Well, if
course,
you
there's
want
a
to
little
listen to
gray
that,
area
then
differences.
if you want to listen to that, then you can listen to that, and in a conversation with somebody who does disagree.
Yeah.
But this isn't a come in and interview me kind of live stream. So I'm gonna let you go, Omi. But thank you for being here. Let's bring up Moonshine 67. Moonshine, how's it going? Damn it! He got me. He got me. I've been had. Rest in peace. Rest in peace. God damn it, muted. Yeah, so there are 570 people watching on TikTok, plus another few hundred watching in other places. If you're MAGA, if you're on the right, if you're a conservative, and you think that actually MAGA is not anti-science, MAGA is actually pro-science, or at best it's neutral. If that's what you think, feel free to join the box. I can't imagine that anyone would want to be MAGA if they also think that MAGA is anti-science, but maybe they would. So let's hear what they have to say, and talk to our next guest. John William, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing all right. John, do you mind if I ask you a few questions before we jump in?
Yeah.
So first, would you call yourself MAGA?
I would lean in that direction, yeah.
Okay. Wait, people are... Okay, yeah. Sorry, I thought people were saying I was muted, but I'm... No audio on TikTok? Hold on, sorry, one sec. No, it's just my chat log being slow. One moment. Wait, no sound? What is happening? Okay, everybody can hear me? Okay, we're good. Right, sorry about that. Right. So, did you say that you would call yourself MAGA?
I lean right. MAGA
Okay.
is obviously a leaning right organization.
Okay. So, would you say that climate change is real? And if so, would you say that humans are the main cause?
I would think that climate change is real. I believe climate is always changing. I do not believe that humans are probably the main cause. I'd probably say there's something out there that I'm unaware of that's probably related to the stars in the sky. That probably is more of a cause than the tiny things that little baby humans do in comparison to the galaxies that are out there.
Okay. And do you think that the vaccines that we typically administer to children, think of like the MMR vaccine, the hepatitis A vaccine, do you think that these are generally safe and effective?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you think that humans evolved from non-human ancestors?
I actually do think that, yeah.
Okay, great. Those are just for my own edification. I'm just interested in like what the demographics are of people who join these things. So, look, the claim is that MAGA is anti-science, and that means something very specific. When I'm talking about MAGA, I'm not talking about any one particular individual who's like a MAGA follower. I'm talking about general trends. And secondly, I'm also talking about policy decisions made by the leaders of the MAGA movement. Think like Trump and RFK and the rest of the cabinet and, senior members of Congress, these kinds of things. And when I say that MAGA is anti-science, what I mean by anti-science is something also very specific. What I mean is that the political movement rejects or delegitimizes scientific consensus when it's politically inconvenient, and it undermines the institutions that produce scientific knowledge. So what I'm saying is that's what MAGA is doing. There are some politically inconvenient scientific facts that are being rejected by the MAGA political movement, and that the MAGA political movement is seeking to undermine the institutions that produce the scientific knowledge that is politically inconvenient. Would you disagree?
So when I think of the times government has truly stepped in on the science side of things since MAGA has existed, I think of COVID.
Sure. Well, that's more like public health than science, but they're related.
Yeah. Obviously, there hasn't been like a new discovery in astrology or biology or something along those sides of science. So that's what I think of in general.
Wait, what do you mean there hasn't been new discoveries?
What I mean by that is the government doesn't, impact that form of discovery or whatnot. That's just the majority of that stuff probably happens outside of the U.S.
Are you sure?
More than U.S. itself.
So, do you know how much money the government? So, do you know what the National Science Foundation is?
Yes.
So, the National Science Foundation is a granting organization. It's publicly funded by federal taxpayer dollars. It's directed by the executive branch, and they provide something like a quarter of all scientific funding in the United States.
Agreed.
And so, clearly, the government has a large role to play in scientific research in the United States.
And I think a lot of that is due to public universities more than anything.
No, so the NSF can provide grants to researchers at public universities, but they just provide grants in general. You apply for a grant at the NSF, it's called an NSF grant, and then they evaluate your application, and if they like it, they give you money to do your research. And maybe it's like a 3-year program and they allocate $300,000 a year for your research program or whatever it is, and that's what you get. And a lot of that takes place at universities. A lot of it also takes place in like private companies and in nonprofits and things like that. So there's absolutely a major role that the government plays in scientific funding and scientific research in the United States. I mean, just look at the Manhattan Project, right? That was a government-funded thing. So to say that the government just doesn't play a big role in scientific research outside of
what I mean more by
COVID.
that is for example, if you looked at the differences in grants in year to year between administrations, there probably wouldn't be a huge statistical change between those. It's not like one steps in
I'd love if that were true.
Cancels every research on pancreatic cancer just because they feel like
I'd love if that were true. You know what's a bummer though? It's a bummer that that's exactly what didn't happen. So in 2025, in March, the NSF does something like on the order of like 10,000 grants a year. That's like what its average was. In 2025, 4,000 grants got terminated in March.
And did any specifics behind a generality of what those were?
Yeah, this was part of Doge.
Oh, okay, yeah. So
I mean, Doge was basically like, oh, we don't like this grant, we're going to terminate it. We don't like that grant, we're going to terminate it. Thousands of grants were cut under Trump because of Trump.
Yeah.
So to say that the number of grants are the kind of grants that is basically unchanged administration to it's unfortunately factually untrue.
I would say they did institute a new Doge, which obviously would make that change. But what I'm saying is, for example, between 2016 and 2018, between when Trump had his first term and when Trump's had his second term, other than Doge stepping in and being an outlier.
Well, but the point is that's an example of Trump being, or of MAGA being anti-science. They cut a huge fraction of grants. And I can give you more examples. So,
well, it's more of an anti-spending, right? That's the objective of that organization.
Look, this is an example of
government because they fired government employees.
Well, those weren't government employees that were being fired.
Well, no, just in general. Like, they obviously fired a lot of government employees.
Yeah, so can you make sense of then, and we can keep talking about the NSF, but there's other things to talk about. Can you make sense of how the entire governing board of the National Science Foundation was fired in April of this year?
Well, I don't know any specifics of that. I imagine that it's probably related to some decisions they made that...
They actually didn't give any explanations at all.
Weren't scientific.
So the National Science Foundation was formed in the 50s, if I remember correctly. And as part of the congressional, like this was it was a law passed by Congress to form the National Science Foundation. And as part of that law, they require that there are 24 experts, 24 kind of people at the top of their field who are in charge of basically being not the last line of defense, but they're kind of the primary people that decide the way that we assign grant money. So like, what direction are we taking our grant money? These are these people, and they're appointed by the president, right? And so this is required by law that there are 24 of these, kind of people at the top of their field who sit on the National Science Board. And in April of 2026, this is just 2 months ago, Trump sent out an email with no explanation given, saying, effective immediately, you have been let go. No explanation given. As far as I know, they haven't been replaced yet. Just shuttered.
Yeah.
And so this isn't an example of just, we're just trying to cut back spending. Because if you go look at how much the NSF pays these people, and they do get some pay, it's like maybe a few $1 million total per year.
Yeah.
So what's the explanation?
My question for you on that would be, let's say that there's this humongous organization, right? Let's say that they control hospitals in the area, or they control, banks in the area, and the individuals, let's say, of that state government aren't happy with whatever it is that they're doing in that location. Right, let's just say that they're not happy with the loans they're giving from this bank. Would it make sense for the government, who's in control in that state over those employees, to say, you know what, this isn't going in the right direction, let's replace everything? Or would it make more sense for them to go like, you know what, let's just step back, let's give it more years, the next person who's in charge might handle this?
Well, I mean, look. So
which
Trump
sounds easier.
So every 4 years.
Start with that. Which sounds easier to do.
So every 2 years, the 8 people get changed out anyway. So there is a natural process by which these National Science Board members get appointed. They have a term of 6 years, and every 2 years, and they're kind of staggered, kind of like the Senate is. So 8 of them are up for replacement every 2 years. So Trump could have just done the replacement thing that he normally does. In fact, he appointed several of the people that he fired in his first term. And so he could have just done the normal thing without dismantling our ability to produce scientific research. And keep in mind, he didn't provide a reason as to why they were fired. He didn't say, oh, well, they're approving bad science. They're approving grants. He just fired them. And so now we just don't have the ability to conduct that kind of granting government job that we had before.
And a lot of times in any business, struggling for a short period of time is better than having the standards of work you've seen previously. Obviously, we don't know the specifics of the scenario, but all you can do is...
It's been months since they've been fired.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and they haven't been
a
replaced.
lot of times to hire somebody, as you probably know, it can take 6 months to a year to replace somebody at a job.
So are we just supposed to shut down our scientific funding for like a year?
Well, I don't think it's that. Obviously, it will be more of a, as it is with anything, when there's a period of time where you don't have the number of employees you should, there'll be a backlog of this needs to get reviewed at some point. But, besides that, I don't think that the intention of doing that is, I hate science.
I mean, right? The intention seems to be, look, if this was just a one-off thing, maybe I would agree with you. But that coupled with cutting thousands of grants, if you go look at the budget proposals for both 2025 and 2026 for the National Science Foundation, its budget is being they're attempting to slash the budget in half. If you go look at the scientific or at the research and development portions of NASA, its budget is being cut in half. If you go look at the research and development budget for the CDC or for the NIH, the National Institute of Health, its research and development budget is being cut by like a third in the proposed budget. There are national labs that have been shuttered. There's a really important national lab for like a climate national lab called NCAR, National Climate, what's it called? The National Climate, National Center for Atmospheric Research in Boulder. It was the largest atmospheric research center in the country, completely shuttered. That was actually, in fact, we actually have words from them that this was explicitly shuttered for political reasons. We have satellites shut down because they're investigating CO2 levels. Like they just turned them off, and so now they're going to fall into the atmosphere and burn up rather than continuing to provide useful data. We have the Forest Service R&D division being completely dismantled from $309 million to zero, and this is helpful for protecting our national forests. We have the Ocean Observatories Initiative, which is being dismantled. Like, this is not a one-off thing. If you go look at the R&D budgets for basically any government-funded anything, you'll see that in the proposals, it's getting slashed or being completely shut down.
Yeah. Well, I guess my question for you, when it comes to research and discovery in general, who leads the world, you would just say in general, in research and discovery?
The United States. At least it was that way until like the 2020s or so. The
general idea is that
China's catching up, and at this rate, probably China will take the mantle as being the scientific mecca of the world as a result of the dismantling of the scientific institutions in the United States.
Let's say today you came up with this wonderful invention idea of sorts that would make you a billionaire one day. Let's say 20 years ago you would have invented it, it would make you a billionaire today. If you invented that same thing today, filed for a patent, got your patent, a week later it would be on Temu for 1/10 the cost.
This seems unrelated to scientific research.
Well, I mean, it can be something scientifically related, right? It can be where it's a device that helps find the number of turtles underground and, whatever it is. Ultimately, research and discovery used to be the way in America because we were first in it. We let everybody else step back. And they were like, okay, America can do all the hard work for us and the world can prosper off America. Now America is realizing.
Do you think that the United States didn't benefit?
Oh no, I'm not saying they didn't benefit. Obviously, in general, everywhere can benefit. It's just
everyone benefits from scientific research. I'm glad we agree.
Yes, agreed. But on the other side of that is the companies that put in billions of dollars into the research get stepped back a little bit.
Most scientific research isn't done. Most scientific research isn't conducted by private companies. Outside of biomedical research, that's conducted by pharmaceutical companies overwhelmingly. But outside of that, most research is not conducted by private companies.
Yeah, or the individuals or whoever.
No, it's mostly conducted by universities and nonprofits and national laboratories, at least in the United States.
Yeah, and a lot of American education in general is funded because of those grants they have to those schools.
Not really.
A university might get a large amount of money.
Undergraduate education isn't funded at all by the NSF or by the NIH or anything like that.
Well, what I mean by that is if you go to a university, like the University of whatever state, then that state has grants that are given to their employees to run they're in their facilities, and that money ends up going to the to the school.
Yeah,
so
to a degree. I mean, there's some degree of overhead. Like you have to pay administrative staff to handle the grant disbursement. You have to pay rent. You have to pay maintenance on your equipment. So there is some overhead, definitely. That goes to the university, but that's not the main source of funding for undergraduate institutions. The main source of funding for undergraduate institutions is going to come from tuition, and it's going to come from direct funding from the state and from the government, not from scientific grants.
And I'm obviously talking about the ones that would use the scientific grants, those graduate universities.
Well, so the vast majority of students at a university are undergraduates. And so what I'm talking about is as far as the actual universities are concerned, the vast majority of their funding is not coming from the vast majority of their funding for teaching, right? You'll have big chunks of funding going for specifically research, but that doesn't get directed into the teaching pool, right?
To a degree, I guess. But what I was kind of getting at in the first place was, the areas that get hurt by this probably the most is probably the universities outside of the future.
It's Americans.
What could have been discovered.
Yeah, I mean it's Americans that get hurt by this, right? So
the university.
No, it's not American universities alone. It's Americans, period. So I'll give you an example. There is a satellite that I have it somewhere. Let me see if I can pull it up. Yeah, so there is a satellite called, I remember what it's called, has a name. It's called the Orbiting Carbon Observatory. So there's basically two of them. One of them is attached to the International Space Station. The other is just a free-floating satellite orbiting the Earth. And basically what it does is it uses a special kind of camera to monitor the CO2 levels in the atmosphere in a localized way, so it can monitor the CO2 levels in different places at different times. So it can see how CO2 is moving from place to place over time, and it's a very useful satellite. Now, the Trump administration tried to shut both satellites down, just cancel them, turn them off, and then let the one that's free floating just deorbit. Now, you might say, okay, well, this is just only useful for climate researchers, but that's not the case. Knowing how CO2 moves from place to place, knowing how CO2 localizes as a result of various crops being grown, is so helpful for farmers to figure out when they should harvest, because it's good to know when the CO2 levels have changed so that it's the appropriate time to harvest, where to plant so that you know where the CO2 concentrations are most stable rather than fluctuating dramatically. These are important pieces of data that farmers would want. It's not just academic. This is the kind of thing that influences the United States' ability to produce food. And the Trump administration has shut it down because that data is also useful for climate science. So this is not hurting just universities. This is hurting all Americans.
So I guess my question for you would be, wouldn't it make more sense instead of our tax dollars going towards a rather expensive project of having something in outer space to handle a farmer's local CO2 checks, rather than that farmer get some CO2 detection software that costs them $100 or $200 or $300 or whatever it is that it costs that local farmer, because they're really invested into CO2 and they really want to make sure their crops really succeed. You see the difference between those two things?
Yeah, except the one that you're providing is like obviously way more expensive than just keeping an orbiting satellite already in orbit, just keeping it there. Like the maintenance cost is probably something like $16 million per year, which if you look at the tax, if you look at the tax implications of that, that's something like 5 cents per person. And so if there's
but also
if there's 1,000 farmers, or if there's one farmer for every 1,000 people, then they would have to pay, like, if they paid more than $50 to sense their CO2 in like their entire field, then it would cost American farmers more. It would cost the American people more to manage that than just by paying for it with NASA's budget. And keep in mind, it's not just about knowing how the CO2 is changing in this area. It's about knowing how the CO2 is changing and moving across the entire world, because that will let you predict what will happen in the future. If you only have data here, you can't know what will happen tomorrow. If you know that there is a general flow of CO2 coming from the south that will get to your region in a week based off of its projected velocity, now you can make decisions that will coincide with those predictions of the future. You can't do that if you're just monitoring your own stuff.
I guess my question for you is, do you think it's more important for government to know and control things, or do you think it's more important for each individual in a country to choose and make the decision of what they think is important and put their tax dollar towards that? Just in a generality kind of sake.
The whole purpose of government exists so that decisions that are individually disadvantageous but are advantageous for the population as a whole can be made. That's the whole point. It's the whole point of a government. If you don't want to, if you don't want to, like, if you don't think that that's a good model, then like go live in like anarchy, I guess. But like that's the whole point. The whole point is that yes, you will paying money to do something. Like, look, I'm not a farmer, so I don't care. It doesn't affect me. But me paying 5 cents every year so that the farmers who grow my food can produce better, more effective, more prosperous crops, that is super beneficial to the society as a whole, even if I'd rather not pay 5 cents a year. Like that's the whole point of government.
That is, there's a threshold.
And by the way, this data is publicly available. It's not like it's being controlled.
Yeah, there's a threshold that needs to be passed in order to determine whether or not the government should step in or not on everything that exists.
The point is that there are individual things that there are things that people wouldn't take on individually, but if everybody took it on, it would be massively beneficial to everybody. That's like what a government is for. That's what governments do. In fact, that's what national defense is, right? Like if I had to buy up my own arsenal to protect my home or to protect the borders, I wouldn't do it. But it's good that we all pool our money so that, I think that we probably spend way too much on it, but like, I think that generally having some sort of national defense, some sort of mechanism to protect the citizens of a country from foreign adversaries, I think that that's generally a good thing. And so that would be an example of a detriment to the individual paying taxes.
So
actually being super helpful to the collective.
So what I'm tying into is, you believe then that certain research projects may be frivolous, may be not worth it, and certain ones are definitely worth it, should definitely be funded and help society. The individual wouldn't put in the effort for that.
Yeah, but, and in fact, like especially in a capitalist environment, it's just not the case that most of this research would be conducted, even if the long-term effects of said research would be wildly beneficial, right? I mean, like, just look at like how corporations function, right? They function on a quarter-by-quarter basis, maybe on an annual basis. Maybe they're looking 6 to 9 months ahead. But really, like in the world that we live in, a company is trying to maximize profits for the next quarter. They're not looking 10 years down the line. They're not looking to see how much they can benefit society in 10 years. That's just not what companies do. And so it's good that we have publicly funded goods, because it turns out some things take a long time to provide fruit, but the fruit they provide couldn't be obtained any other way. And it's good that we invest in those things, right?
Yes. So my question for you then is, if the government is this power that can decide whether or not a grant should exist or not, do you believe they're weighing these considerations we're talking about? Or you to believe that they're angry about science and don't want there to be science, and therefore they're stopping every grant they can that has a word science?
What is evidently the case, just from looking at all of the data that we have, is that the Trump administration, especially the second Trump administration, because the second Trump administration is way more unhinged than the first one, the second Trump administration is making an effort to shut down basically as many scientific organizations or scientific research endeavors that they can that are tied to climate change, because they're clearly in the pockets of, you know, oil companies and coal companies, which is why things like the satellite was being shut down, which is why the National Center for Atmospheric Research was shut down, which is why the budget or the Forest Service's R&D budget has been completely shuttered, which is why like all of these grant funding agencies, if they are funding climate science research, then we are seeing that those fundings are being cut. So this is clearly politically motivated, because the MAGA wing of the Republican Party, I mean, generally the Republican Party, but more so the MAGA wing, doesn't think that climate change is real, and if they do think it's real, then they think it's not worth fixing. They think it's not worth studying. They think it's just natural, it'll be fine, which is like obviously politically motivated. You know, if it turns out to be the case that the scientific research is quite strong, that climate change is caused by humans, it is happening, it will have detrimental effects, then that would motivate people to be interested in green energy, to try to fix the issue, to try to resolve the issue. And so if you have a politician that is in the pocket of coal, in the pocket of oil companies, then of course they're going to be motivated to try to prevent that research from getting out, which is exactly what's happening.
Well, so there's two things I want to make a point on. One thing, I guess, would be, because we are capitalistic and you can make a decision as to where you want to spend your hard-earned money, if there were two organizations, one organization that didn't mention how they got rid of their gases or how they did whatever it did that pollutes the world, and another one said, hey, we're vegan and we're gluten-free and we make sure that our pollutants go out the correct way, wouldn't it make sense that, you know, we use air power, we use solar energy, whatever it is, like electric cars, for example? Wouldn't you think it's the society that would make the choice if they believed that it truly could impact the world on the side of climate? I think you muted.
Oh, my bad. Yeah. So look, think of like your average person, right? They're like not the brightest cookie, right? Like your average American, not like so smart. You know, they're not intellectual titans, the average person. Half the people in the country are dumber than that. And so, yeah, like there are a lot of people who are going to just be dumb and not understand how, you know, how the climate works, not understand what the greenhouse effect is, not understand what like climate forcing is. And that doesn't mean that they're bad decisions, because keep in mind, this is the kind of thing that if a large group of people if you know 30% of the population makes a bad decision with regards to climate, that affects everybody. It doesn't just affect them. So this is why, at least in the past, we've wanted smart people to be in charge, right? Like go look at like the way that you know, the academic credentials of like the presidents basically up until Trump's first term. These are people who were like the best lawyers in the country, or top engineers, or God, we have like an astronaut in the Senate, right? So like we used to care. We used to say, look, a lot of people are dumb, but there are smart people. Let's let them make the decisions, because they'll make good decisions. That's what it means to be smart, that you make good decisions. And so that's what the National Science Board did, for example. The goal of the National Science Board was, look, like politicians don't really know much about science, but what politicians can do is they can find good scientists, like the top of their field, and then we can put those scientists in charge of how we're distributing grant money, because they'll know what's going on in the world of science and how we can allocate funds to best improve our country, right? And so that's something that we used to value, because yeah, some people are stupid, and we don't want their stupidity to hurt them and to hurt everybody else. So we appointed these 24 experts, luminaries of their field, so that they could make these scientific decisions and not be at the whim of your median voter. And that's a good thing. And it's a bummer that you're advocating for, well, if 35% of the population, which decides basically who's the president and who's in the executive branch, decide that, well, science sucks, that we're just not going to do that, that sucks. That sucks a lot, and it makes the world worse.
I think there's a big difference, though. I think your argument should be a little bit different. Instead of it is anti-science, I believe it would be understandable for you to write is anti-climate change.
Well, no. So climate change is just one example. I can give you more.
Well, and I think if you gave me more, it would align in the same direction of, like, for example, today versus 20 years ago. What has changed in your life because of the way that climate changed in those 20 years? And if
what has changed in my life? Well, I can't go out. So it is
100,000 individuals.
It's June 11th. So I'll just answer your question. It's June 11th. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. It is hotter today. In fact, it was hotter in March than it had ever been in human history here. I literally can't go outside past 11 a.m. without risking heat stroke. And it's only June 11th.
It was like that when you were 10 years old.
No, it wasn't. Literally every single year is a new record high in temperature. Every single year is a new record high.
If you can show me real data that says there was a record high temperature every year, each year after another in Arizona, I would be astounded for 20 years straight.
Let me show you. And by the way, this is I'm just showing you an example of what I'm talking about. This isn't the exact thing that I was referring to with regards to Arizona. This is just the first one I could find.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Is
no, hold on.
Individuals should be able to perceive a difference. And if we're talking about
why
global changes,
why should individuals be able to perceive a difference?
Because if something doesn't impact your life, why would you invest your life into that thing?
Look, so
you know what I mean? I
so hold on.
Climate is changing on the moon. We should create a moon program.
Let's say that houses
about checking their climate.
Let's say that houses outpace inflation cost by 1% every year, right? You won't notice that. You won't notice that change until 30 years down the line when you want to buy a house and houses cost 3 times your or 5 times your annual salary. These are things that happen very slowly. Humans are bad at noticing slow changes that accumulate.
Well, I mean, if you go back
climate change.
100,000 years, or if you go back 100 million years, or you go back, you can pick any data point you want, and you can see a time period when the Earth was colder, or the Earth was warmer.
Here, let me show you something.
Humans might not have even existed.
Let me show you something. This is in Austin, Texas, by the way. It's just an infographic, but it does provide a source. Let me put this down. So this is the number of records, like temperature records set by decade. And so hopefully you can tell that the number of temperature records that are being set, these are high temperature records rather than cold. You can have cold temperature records when it's colder than it's ever been, or you can have high temperature records where it's hotter than it's ever been. Look at how the number of temperature records has changed over time.
Yeah. And my question for you is, how many people in the city of Austin are you going to convince in showing them CO2 numbers from a satellite that they should change their daily behaviors?
We're not talking about look, this is why we don't operate at the level of the individual, and because that won't work.
What's going to make the change?
We know that this is a real problem.
What's going to fix climate change?
We know. It's a question of whether or not it can be fixed. It can probably be alleviated. We can probably make it less bad.
So
than
how would you alleviate it?
So what we would do is we
person's individual.
No, we would reduce CO2 emissions on a national scale.
So how do you do that?
So you can put a carbon tax. That would be one way to do it.
So you would have an individual in their home do something specific to decrease the amount. You know, turn the water off.
No, it's a carbon tax. You implement a carbon tax.
Yeah, and you could tax the industries, and then what's going to happen is the price of every good is going to go up, and you're going to pay more money there.
So carbon taxes have been shown to be incredibly effective at reducing carbon emissions.
I actually do have to head out though, man. I'm sorry. Hey, it's been awesome though.
All right, take care, bud.
I don't mean to like cut you off or whatnot, but have a good one, man.
You're good. Take care.
I gotta get back.
Okay. All right, let's read some super chats and we'll bring up our next guest. By the way, it was really interesting, and I'll just give you an anecdote. So I went to the zoo for the first time in a long time. There's 2 zoos in Phoenix. One is kind of in the middle of Phoenix. One is out in the west by an Air Force base. I'd never been to the one out in the west, and I decided to go to that zoo a week before my surgery. This was March 16th or something like that. That was the hottest. That was the hottest middle of March that had ever happened in Arizona's history. It was like 95 degrees in the middle of March. Why is it that we've been seeing once in a century hurricanes, once in a lifetime droughts, once in a lifetime heat waves, like every single year lately? I don't know, man. All right, let's read some super chats and then we'll bring on our next guest. From Zetal Fakapa with the $20, very, very generous of you. I appreciate it a lot. Keep fighting the good fight. Sorry, keep fighting the good fight. I think I can speak for most of rational society when I say we love these streams. Well, I appreciate that. It's very generous of you. From LELs with the €2, can you ask caller why he thinks government equals business? Yeah, that was kind of weird, right? From Grimmy with the $10, give a capitalist 2 ideas, one that brings innovation to society at the cost of 2% profits, the other causes societal damage with a 25% profit increase. The capitalist will generally pick the 25% increase. Indeed they will. Yep. Because I mean, look, and that's the job of a corporation. That's the job, it's to generate profits. From Grimmy, it's hot as fuck. Oh, it's been so hot. It's been unbearable. From Grimmy again with the $5. I've lived in Arizona for the last 20 years. There's definitely been a difference in temperature. Yeah, in fact, when I lived in the Czech Republic, there's been an observable difference there too. So the university that I was at hosted a conference in like kind of the snowy mountains in the southwest part of the country every year for the last 45 years. It used to be that every Wednesday, so the conference was a week, and on the Wednesday you would go out and you would do some cross-country skiing, and that was just like the tradition. For the 3 years that I was there, it didn't snow. It didn't snow there. And the last year that I was there wasn't even snow on the ground. It wasn't even cold enough to keep snow on the ground. It was just clear. That's a change that's happened in the last 45 years. From Mr. Pecho with the $20, this fucking donut does not understand the concept of a public good, much less a global public good, like a livable planet. And I'm going to throw my computer through a window. Please don't. We rely on your computer. From helping MAGA deconstruct with the $10, just to add, I don't know a farmer who doesn't depend on AI, GPS, and satellite mapping to track planting/harvesting. Not to mention GMO crops. Modern farming is heavily dependent on science and tech. Indeed it is. Yeah. And from helping MAGA deconstruct again with the $2, there's a reason modern combines cost $1 million. Yeah, they're high-tech pieces of equipment. Just gonna double. Oh, and from Gretchen with the $3, fire season in California is half the year now. That's new. So the neighborhood that I live in front of, and I wish I had a picture of this. The neighborhood that I live in front of, it's a part of a neighborhood in the Greater Phoenix area. It's like near natural reserves. And there's a sign up that tells you the fire risk. And it says like mild, moderate, high, very high, extreme. That's the range. And for like how dry it is and for how hot it is. And I kid you not, so I've lived here for a year now. I kid you not, I've only seen it drop below extreme once. And it dropped to very high. Because it's hot and dry the whole time. I get it's a desert, but it didn't used to be this dry. It didn't used to be this hot. And from Discordant Rhymes with the 7 Canuck Bucks, we are essentially watching Chesterton's fence play out in real time over and over and over again. Is that a Canadianism? Because I have no idea what that is. And I think we got a Cash App as well. Oops. Okay, that's an old one from Grimlock, which is always appreciated. All right. Let's bring up Drew Lopez. Drew Lopez, how's it going?
Hey, it's going good, man.
Glad to hear it. Drew, I have a few questions for you, if that's okay, before we get started.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so first question, and I ask this to everybody. First question is, do you consider yourself MAGA?
I think so.
Okay. Second question, do you think that climate change is happening? And if so, do you think that humans are the main cause?
I believe it is happening, and I am not sure if we're the main cause.
Okay. Do you think that the vaccines that we typically administer to young children, like infants and toddlers, are generally safe and effective? Think like the MMR vaccine, the hepatitis A vaccine, these kinds of things.
Yeah, I think generally, like, most of them should be safe, from what I understand.
And do you think that humans evolved from non-human ancestors?
Non-human ancestors? Like, you mean like
primates,
fish?
like other primates?
Well, I know we all started out as, like, unicellular, right?
Okay, so do you believe that that's true?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Look, so you said you consider yourself MAGA, so I can explain what I mean by MAGA as anti-science, and then we can talk about it. The view is twofold. One, I'm not talking about individuals here. I'm not talking about like individual MAGA people. I'm talking about kind of the political movement as a whole. And so the second thing is, when I say anti-science, what I mean is that the political movement rejects or delegitimizes scientific consensus when it's politically inconvenient, and it also seeks to undermine the institutions that produce that scientific research. That's what I mean by anti-science. So would you say that you think that MAGA is anti-science? Do you think that it's neutral? Do you think that it's pro-science? What's your take?
I'd probably have to lean towards pro-science.
All right. So presumably, given the definition that I've offered for anti-science, pro-science would be something like they accept scientific consensus even when it's politically inconvenient, and that they seek to uphold and support scientific institutions that produce the politically inconvenient scientific information. Would you say that that's a good description of what MAGA does?
Well, I mean, I've personally heard Trump be very interested in protecting and preserving wildlife.
What does that have to do with science?
Well, I mean,
that's conservationism, which is good. I'm all in favor of conservationism, but that just doesn't seem like it's science.
Oh, is that not a part of science? Like,
not really. I mean, there are scientists who study that stuff, but just saying we should protect, you know, endangered species, that's not really science. That's like if you wanted to say we should fund environmental research, that would be science. I agree.
Oh, okay. Okay, so what was the question? Ask me the question one more time.
Do you think that MAGA's pro-science in the sense that that MAGA tends to support scientific research even if it's politically inconvenient?
I think maybe I would say yeah.
Could you give me examples?
Let me think right quick. He pretty much himself single-handedly put in the you remember when we were going through COVID, and he gave the order to like produce the he wanted to produce the vaccine like as quickly as humanly possible.
Yep, that was Trump 1. Do you think that MAGA is generally pro-vaccine still?
Pro-vaccine, probably, yeah.
Sorry to disappoint you. Do you want me to give you a survey?
What do you mean?
there have been surveys of people who are, of like the way that people approach vaccination and correlating it with, you know, political ideology. And it turns out that as far as, hold on, I'm just pulling up the actual survey. Republicans are, 28% of Republicans say that vaccines are not safe. 31% of MAGA Republicans say the vaccines are safe, compared with 7% of compared with only 7% of Democrats who say that they're not safe. So it seems like MAGA Republicans are far less likely to think that vaccines are safe nowadays. This is as of, what year is this? 2025, than they were 6 years ago. We can also look at
my signal cut out, I think, for a second. But
we can also look at data on vaccine hesitancy.
I was going to say.
So in 2019, 52% of people, 52% of Republicans or people who lean right, thought that childhood vaccines are worthwhile. This is in 2019. This is before COVID, or rather, this was conducted like just as COVID was becoming a thing. 52%. In 2024, only 26% of right-wing people think that childhood vaccines are important. So what's happened over the last 6 years that's caused Republicans to go from roughly 50-50 to thinking that vaccines are good to only a quarter of them think that it's good.
Didn't he get more supporters this time around?
Yeah, and yet the Republicans are less likely to support vaccines this time around. What's going on?
I know, but I'm saying, but doesn't it, like, if we got more supporters, doesn't it make it mean like there's a chance for there to be more crazies in our group?
Mean, it's like the percentage of the United States that's Republican hasn't really changed much.
Because I was just going off of like me and all the MAGA people that I know. I mean, we definitely wouldn't stop our children from getting vaccinations, and you know, I mean, but we're like, all the MAGA people I know don't even believe in God and stuff like that. So I don't know. Maybe it's like an internet. Do you think it's possibly like an internet thing? Because
no, because the survey data that I have wasn't just an internet thing.
I mean, I've never been polled for any of these kind of questions.
Yeah, that's okay. It's okay. Not everybody gets polled. It doesn't mean that it's not representative of the population.
Is there a chance that the numbers could be skewed, though?
Is there a chance? Not a big one. Like, I mean, the reality is that like this is the general trend. What we've and of course it is. Like RFK is somebody who's I don't want to misquote him, but he has, paraphrasing, said that vaccines cause autism. He said that Tylenol causes autism, and he's the head of the NIH. He's the human health. What is it? What's his position? It's I can never remember the exact position that he had. He is he head of HHS, Health and Human Services? Yeah, he's the United States Secretary of Health and Human Services. He's the head of that, HHS. And he's the one saying Tylenol causes autism? Like, that's the MAGA today. MAGA today is very anti-medical science. Maybe in 2026 you would have had a good argument, or in 2020 you would have had a good argument to make that like, oh yeah, like we Trumpers, we love the Operation Warp Speed, but that's just not today.
Oh. Okay, well, I'll take your word for it.
Anything else you want to talk about, Drew? It sounds like a no. I'm going to let him go. All right, let's read some super chats and then we'll bring up our next guest. From Helping MAGA Deconstruct again with the $2. Also, farmers have access to NASA Harvest for free. That's cool. I didn't know that. I assumed as much, but I just didn't know. And from Pensive with the $20, keep on fighting, Doctor. I will do my best. We fight the good fight. Let's talk to Anthony BG. Anthony BG, how's it going?
Very well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions before we get started?
Go right ahead.
Okay. So first, would you consider yourself MAGA?
Yes.
Okay. Second, if you think that climate change is happening, do you think that humans are the main cause?
I don't.
Okay. Do you think that vaccines that we typically administer to infants, like think like the MMR vaccine, the hepatitis vaccine, these things, do you think that these are generally safe and effective?
100%. Yes.
Okay. And do you think that humans evolved from non-human ancestors?
I do.
Okay, cool. It's just that's it. So the prompt here is MAGA's anti-science.
Right.
And I don't know if you were here for it, but what I mean specifically is that essentially the MAGA political movement, I'm not talking about individuals, but the MAGA political movement seems to be trying to undermine and disregard science that is inconvenient.
I semi-agree with you. I think the problem I had with the prompt, meanwhile, I should also say, every other prompt you've ever had up, I've agreed with. So this is, just being 100% honest. This one in particular, I think is too broad. I think, first of all, I happen to be a MAGA that is, I think what you're referring to there is the evangelical groups specifically. I definitely would not consider myself anti-science.
Well, I'm not referring to individuals. I'm referring to the political movement as a whole.
Right, as a majority, or...
Yeah, as like general trends. So like for example, if you take one example, and this is the kind of data that I use, is if you take polling data of the general population of the United States, and then you break it down by political movement for like, how much do you think that we should, I don't know, fund, just trying to come up with a non-political thing, fund the arts, right? And if it were the case that Green Party voters, only 20% of them thought that we should fund the arts at all, but the general population was 50% thought that we should fund the arts, then that would tell me that as a generalization about the Green Party, they're anti-art. Or at least that would be a piece of data that they're anti-art, because they're less likely to support this thing than the general population.
Right. So anti-science, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Go ahead.
Anti-science to me is almost like you're saying, say, for instance, if I'm a Yankee fan and I don't like the Red Sox, I wouldn't say I don't like baseball. And that's basically what you're saying. You're all-encompassing science. I believe in science, almost completely. Would I give my kid, and I have given my kid, every vaccine under the sun? Absolutely. Do I think that the most recent vaccine had problems? Yes, I think they had problems. Now, it wasn't how their efficacy or anything like that. I think there's some side effects that affected people. But overall, was it a good vaccine, and did it go through the same standards? Yeah. So I don't know what science that we wouldn't believe in.
Yeah, I can be specific.
Okay.
So and to be clear, I'm not saying that MAGA in general is less likely to accept all science than the general population. The claim is that MAGA in general is less likely to accept scientific fact, scientific consensus, and support scientific institutions that is politically inconvenient. So, like just as far as like political stuff is concerned, like obviously any science that has to do with like trans people, that's obviously going to be politically inconvenient if it is kind of pro-trans, right, for the right wing of the political.
That's exactly the topic I was thinking of.
But also like any science that involves the efficacy of using masks, right? That would be politically inconvenient for the right wing, because the right wing generally has been more anti-masking than the left wing has. If we look, any science that has to do with climate change would be politically inconvenient, because the right wing tends to be more pro-oil, more pro-coal, less pro-green energy. So climate science is generally going to be politically inconvenient if it comes out in favor of climate change and being real and having detrimental effects.
So 2 questions for you. Do you think that humans are the primary cause of climate change?
Yes, and that is the consensus of like basically that is the consensus of climate scientists.
That humans
are the main cause.
Then the other question I have is, do you think there is anything humans can do to reverse what the damage that you're saying that would have any sort of effect on the environment?
Reverse, maybe not. Reversing might be a long-term process, but alleviating more bad things, possible. making so there are a few different ways that that the world could end up going as far as the climate is concerned. There could be like a worst case scenario. Avoiding that would be good.
Well, I think that's inevitable. I mean, I think
it's not inevitable. There's just policy decisions that have to be made. There's just policy decisions that have to be made. And if you make those policy decisions and we do the things that are required of us, then absolutely you can avoid the worst case scenario. We could limit temperature increases to like just 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2100 rather than 3 degrees Celsius by 2100. So like that would be examples of things that we could do, or that would be an example of the kind of thing that we could avoid. And 3 degrees is way worse than 1.5 degrees. So yeah, there are things that we could do. It is getting late, but look. What do they say? The best time to start investing was 20 years ago. The second best time to start investing is today. The same is true with regards to climate, with regards to efforts to reduce our negative impact on the climate. The best time to start would have been like the 70s. The second best time is now. The worst time would be never. The second worst time would be in 50 years, right? So. It's that kind of thing. But it's not just climate change either. There is like a big like evangelical wing of MAGA, which I understand doesn't apply to you. It is a big portion of MAGA. So like evolutionary biology research, that's pretty politically inconvenient. Now, because there's a big chunk of the MAGA population, not all of it of course, but a big chunk that thinks that we shouldn't be teaching that kind of stuff in school, right? There's a lot of so there's a lot of science that is generally politically inconvenient for the right-wing MAGA political movement.
What percentage of the left do you think men can get pregnant?
What percent? Sorry, can you repeat the question? What percentage
of the left do you think that men can get pregnant?
I don't know. Maybe like 15%.
So 15% of the left think men can get pregnant. Okay. All right. And where does the science lie there?
That's indeed the case. Because the science the science shows that there's a distinction between sex and gender. Right. That these are distinct concepts, and so you can have a male.
Okay.
Males generally don't get pregnant. Females generally can get pregnant if there's no underlying issues. And so if sex and gender are distinct things, and this is scientific consensus amongst sociologists, psychologists, neurobiologists, etc. If sex and gender are indeed distinct, but perhaps related, then you can have a male who's a woman, or you can have a female who's a man. And if you have a female can in principle get pregnant, even if they're a man.
And this is the consensus, you're saying?
The consensus is that sex and gender are distinct things. That they're distinct things, but are related.
They're related how?
They're related in that the way that we construct this idea of gender, and you can go talk to the sociologists and psychologists and so on about what it means for something to be socially constructed. These have ties to biological features. So most of the time, the gender, there is an alignment between gender and sex, but not always.
And do you condone gender affirming care as a child?
Depends on what the gender affirming care
puberty
is.
blockers.
Depends on what the gender affirming care is. But
the same hormone that they would give.
My general view is that whatever the current best scientific research indicates is optimal for the outcome of the child or the teenager is the thing that should be allowed. That's my general view.
I mean, I'm very alarmed by the fact, and I have absolutely nothing wrong with anybody that's homosexual, anybody that's trans. If you're an adult, you do what you want to do. It's alarming to me as the parent of a young child that there's a 6x increase in people that identify in the LGBTQ community, and it's alarming to say the least.
Can I show you something?
Yeah, sure.
This is just it's an interesting plot. Sorry, I want this one. So this is the left-handedness rate amongst Americans by year of birth. Now, do you think that there was some sort of social contagion that made people left-handed that took place, I don't know, between the 1920s and the 1940s?
No.
Okay, so why do you think that the number of left-handed Americans increased from, say, 3-ish% to like 12% over the last 100 years? Because that's a 4x increase.
Yeah, and that's 100 years. Now,
Basically all of that took place basically all of that took place over like 30 years, right?
Okay, I'm talking about a fifth of that, about roughly 20 years.
So
we're looking at a 6x increase.
This change between, you know, the early 1900s to the early 1940s, that took place over like 30 years, and it was like a 4x increase. So how can you account for this rise?
I mean, there's the only thing that I can think of would be it's an example of an adapting feature to a human in some way, shape, or form, due to maybe the Industrial Revolution happening obviously many years prior to that. Maybe over a generation or two, people needed to learn to use both hands, and that to me makes a little bit more sense.
It's generally
is it alarming to you?
It's generally accepted that this phenomenon was caused by the abolition of sorry, but I was peeking my mic. Caused by the abolition of teachers slapping kids for writing with their left hand.
Wow.
So I mean, basically, once we got rid of corporal punishment in schools, kids who were naturally going to be left-handed started being comfortable writing with their left hand instead of having their wrists slapped by a ruler and then told to write with their right hand. Right? So, I mean, so this is an example of, once we started accepting that people were left-handed and that that's okay, the number of people who were left-handed shot up. What a surprise.
Yeah.
So what has happened in the last 30 years in the United States with regards to acceptance of gay people, acceptance of trans people?
I think it's more of a sometimes the worst thing a kid could be is a straight white kid. You know, I think sometimes
it sounds like you're telling me that people are more accepting of gay people and trans people now than they were 30 years ago.
More accepting? Sure. Yeah, I'll grant you that.
So is it possible that there are a large portion of the population, not large, they're, you know, just like, you know, it's only actually like 2% or something like that, but like 2% of the population would have naturally been trans anyway, but up until, you know, starting 30-ish years ago, people, like, it was so heavily or socially looked down upon that people just stayed in the closet. People fought their urges.
If that was the case, then there's going to have to be somebody that's explaining why there was not a mass unaliving, you know, self-unaliving that occurred, because we were told that this is a direct correlation, that there's an increase of,
Do you think that
children.
People weren't killing themselves 30 years ago?
Certainly not at the rates that if they were always there in the numbers they are.
Just to be clear, if they were in the closet, we wouldn't have data on how frequently the people in the closet were killing themselves, because we wouldn't know that they were secretly trans.
So then how would we know that there's an increase in a child unaliving themselves if we don't perform this care? Because that's also something.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, sure. No, you hear the narrative of if we don't let a child affirm his or her gender, whatever they want to be, then there's an increased risk of self-unaliving. How could we know that data if it doesn't exist? You're very familiar with that.
So what we do have data on, and I'm sure we can go find it, is that people who are trans in an area that is not accepting of them, they're more at risk for these things, and that makes sense, right? Like, imagine being a black person in a racist town, right?
Yeah.
And so, if you're being forbidden from being who you want to be, then of course you're going to have a higher rate of that kind of thing. But look, to be clear, my position regarding trans people, my position regarding basically all of these is, look, I'll just take a look at whatever the data says is optimal for outcomes for children and teenagers, or is optimal to reduce suicide, or is optimal to increase human flourishing. Whatever the data is, that's the way that I'm going to go. And so, like, I honestly don't care. Like, if it makes me uncomfortable, like, whatever, I don't care. If the data that we have goes one way, then it's probably just more likely that I'm wrong. My intuitions are just bad.
So, do you think that there's more people that don't believe in that science compared to the Republican side, that don't believe in the science about jabs?
You'll have to repeat that. That was not super clear.
So, sure, the people on the right that you don't believe in the jabs and the efficacy of the jabs, do you think that amount is greater than or less than the amount of people that don't believe in the science that we were just discussing on the left?
I think probably more people on the right are anti-science with regards to trans people. Because like this is like, look, so if somebody told me that they think that you know, we shouldn't be giving boob jaw, or we shouldn't be chopping off 9-year-olds' penises, if somebody told me that, I can clock them immediately for being a Trump supporter. Like immediately.
Well,
that is
certainly
the
shouldn't
best.
be doing that.
Like being anti-trans is the best predictor of being right wing right now. Anyway,
I will grant you.
And by the way, I agree. We shouldn't chop off people. We shouldn't chop off people's dicks when they're 9 years old. My point is, if somebody says that, if somebody, to be clear, if somebody says that, that means that they're concerned that that's a thing that's happening, and it's not a thing that's happening.
Well, I mean, puberty blockers are a thing that's happening.
Puberty blockers are a thing that's happening, and puberty blockers are generally reversible if you're not on them for more than like 3 or 4 years.
Well, I have a problem accepting that.
Well, like, I mean, look. So if it's true, if the scientific data is clear that indeed the only long-term effects are perhaps slightly reduced bone density, if that is the only long-term effect of reversing puberty blockers, if that's the scientific data, what's the issue there?
The issue would be really finding out what a child means when they say that, you know, they think they're a girl. Say a little boy says he thinks he's a girl. You should really get to the meaning of what he, in this case, is really trying to say. More than likely, he wants to do something that the girls are doing. And so he should be steered. I mean, he is a child. They should be steered into reality at a younger age instead of being allowed to think that there is an idea that a boy can become a girl.
Okay, so you're just doing the anti-science thing, right?
I don't know. I don't believe I'm doing the anti-science thing.
I mean, trans people exist. There have been studies that show that trans people's brains are distinct in at least 2 ways from cis people's brains. They are, you know, there's a genuine neurological difference. So this is a real thing that exists.
It occurs in the brain, absolutely.
And so is it your view? Actually, what's the right way to do this? What's the right way to frame this? Suppose that it's 100 years from now. We live in the cyberpunk world, right? You're alive though, somehow.
Oh, good.
And you know, you were put on ice and you were frozen. You wake up 100 years from now. But when you wake up, you find out that your brain has been put into a woman's body, right? Into like a female body. You have breasts. You have all the anatomy. It's just like a fully grown adult female body. Your brain is now in there. Now, what would be the correct thing to tell people? Or so what would your reaction be, first of all?
This is an interesting hypothetical you pose here, because it's not even something that ever could happen.
That's why it's a hypothetical, right?
Well, no. Hypothetical is usually something that theoretically could.
I mean, this is theoretically possible.
This is not something that
brain transplants are not theoretically.
My brain's going to end up in somebody
Brain
else's
transplants
body?
Are theoretically possible, absolutely.
Well, okay, yeah, I can't argue with the good doctor then.
So it's a hypothetical, right? That's why we're going 100 years into the future. So what would your reaction be? You wake up. You wake up. It was non-consensual, by the way. Okay. You weren't told that this was going to happen. You just wake up and now you're suddenly find yourself in a lady's body.
It's so hard to. Okay. I would think, who did this to me?
Yeah, and then somebody tells you...
It would not feel normal. It would not feel normal.
It wouldn't feel normal. Yeah, right. Something would be off. You're like, where's all my bits, right? Like, what do you mean I have to sit to pee?
I mean, I would look for a mirror real quick, but, you know, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Like, right. Okay, we can do the Scooby-Doo thing, but okay. But then your second reaction would be like, something's up here, this isn't right. Now, if you went to a doctor and you're like, hey, like, I did cryogenic whatever, I woke up, and I was in a female's body. Can you help me? If the doctor said, "Oh yeah, we'll just give you some therapy so you can, you know, adapt to the reality that you're actually a female," how would you respond to that?
You're going to give me some medication to adapt to the reality that I'm a female.
Yeah, some psychological medication, maybe lithium.
Okay. And I would probably react and say, I'm like, you think I'm the crazy one? You know, how am I the crazy one? How did, who did this to me? Still, I want to know who did this to me.
Right. And so what kind of medical procedure would you prefer be done?
Something that the way you would treat somebody with bulimia or anorexia. Or
no, I'm
any other kind
talking
of
to you. You're you in the female's body.
Yeah.
How should
okay?
How should
then
like,
I would
what would you
hopefully
prefer to happen rather than being given lithium?
I would have to be monitored on my eating, because obviously there's something wrong with me.
On your eating?
So, yeah.
Why would you?
I have some sort of disorder, because I maybe I'm not eating right.
What does eating have to do? Look,
I don't know. I'm in a girl's body. I have no idea what's going on. I don't know where.
So do you think that you should be given like mental health medication?
Absolutely.
Therapy? Oh, okay.
Absolutely. 100%.
Okay. Even though you know
Yeah.
for a fact that your brain was just transplanted into a female's body?
Yeah. Yeah, because the last I checked, that wasn't possible.
Well,
And,
no, so I
you
mean,
know,
it's possible. It's possible in the year 2126.
But you didn't say I lived 100 years to get there. You said
No, you
I'm
didn't.
in the
You
year
woke
100.
up.
So then therefore I don't know that's possible.
Okay,
so therefore
I'm telling you
yes,
that
I
it's
would hopefully
possible.
mental health is where this would be steered to.
So I'm telling you that you find out that it's possible in the hypothetical.
Boy, man.
You find out what happened. Yeah.
And tell me again what happened. Okay, yeah, I'm in the girl's body, but how did it get there? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, so they couldn't revive your body because it was 100 years old, but they could revive your brain, and they stuck it in the wrong sex on accident.
Okay, all right. So yeah.
But then you go to the doctor, and the doctor says, "Oh, we can just, we'll just give you some drugs so that you adapt to your new female form."
But I already have a female form.
Yeah, the female form that you now have, we're going to give you drugs so that you can adapt to that, so that then you can be happy being a lady.
So compare these drugs. Give me an idea what these drugs would be.
It's like lithium.
I don't know.
It's like lithium,
So that's what they
maybe
give
some
bipolars,
SSRIs, or
they give you a little moon face.
Basically just drugs so then you would feel more, and therapy, maybe some shock therapy as well, just to well, not they don't want to touch your brain, they don't want to do surgery, but
hopefully asylums will be
just to
back by then,
convince
too.
you that you're back, that you're where you belong.
No, I don't know. I don't know how.
So
that
look,
compares.
if I was in that situation, I would be like, swap my brain back, please. Put me in a male's body. Maybe that wouldn't be your response. Maybe you'd be fine with the drugs. But I'd be like, no, put my brain back.
Oh, I didn't know that was an option.
Yeah, of course it was. They put your they swap brains in the first place. Why couldn't they swap it back?
I didn't go for the Frankenstein option there, but very good, very good.
Okay, so you would want them to swap your brain to a male's body. It couldn't be your original one because that one's dead, but at least some male's body, right?
So it wouldn't be mine. It wouldn't
be your original one because that one's like, the reason
I'll
why
take the girls back.
Sorry?
I would take the girls back and just learn how to be a girl then.
Oh, okay. Interesting choice.
I would rather live in a new girl's body than a new man's body.
Interesting choice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, that's cool for you. So you'd be okay with being trans then?
No.
But you'd be trans in this case.
No, but I don't have any.
Your gender changed, my guy.
How?
You were a man,
construct.
and then you woke up 100 years later, and now you're a woman.
I'm not a woman. You said I had woman parts. You said I had woman parts.
No, it's a woman. It's a female body.
Right. But I'm not. I was never a woman in this whole process. I'm not a woman.
Wait, so to be clear, you wake up in the female body, and you adapt to being. Oh, you're a man. So you can be a man.
I never changed. I was never anything other than a man.
You can be a man.
I mean, I was never anything other than a man.
Hold on, I just want to check. Are you saying that you can be a man and have a vagina?
Oh, sure. Well, it's more like an open wound.
Well, not in this case. In this case, it's just a vagina. There's a female vagina.
As opposed to what? A male one?
It was just a female vagina that was
that
like belonged to a female that you didn't have it before. But you got put into a new body, and the new body has a vagina.
Yeah, so it's no different than a man masquerading as a woman that wants to be known
in your
as
view,
her.
So you're telling me that you're a man, even though you're living in a female body, you have female body parts.
Absolutely,
So
it's just a 100-year later version of dressing up.
Just to be clear, so a man can have a vagina, can have breasts, can have feminine facial features.
Sure.
And a woman could have a penis?
Yes. Yeah. If they're
Welcome to the allyship. I'm glad we got there. Bro's an
they'll
ally.
Never be
Bro's the biggest ally.
They'll never be a man. They'll never be a man.
So you're not so in this hypothetical, you're not a man or you are a man?
I'm me, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm a man, and I've never changed, and I could never change, whether it's 100 years later in who else's body, it doesn't matter. I'm still the man.
Yeah, so you're a man, and that's determined by your brain, not by your body?
I would say chromosomes, DNA.
Wait, but hold on. The majority of the chromosomes are XX for you.
Okay, but my brain
now.
hasn't changed, so I have memories of how my chromosomes were and how I always was. So
you're
I was
right.
yeah. So
but now most of your chromosomes are XX.
How did they do that?
Because you're in a female body.
You said I was wearing a girl's suit. No.
You're in a female body.
You're not. No. You can't change your chromosomes. No.
The body is female. The body is biologically
No.
female. Nothing's changing here. The body is biologically female. Your brain got put into a biologically female body.
I'm an XY chromosomes.
Your brain is, but your body's not.
No, what? That I don't. No, I don't. I can't subscribe to that because I can't
subscribe
change.
to what? It's just a female
the
body.
fact that a human can change their chromosomes. I can't subscribe to that.
I don't know what part is hard here. In this hypothetical, there is a fully grown female body. Maybe the person was brain dead, so they pulled the brain out and put your brain in it.
Okay.
So everything about that body that you now occupy is female. It has XX chromosomes. It has female anatomy, female hormones. The only thing that's male about you is the brain.
Okay, and I haven't lost my memory and what controls every part of the body.
Absolutely, yeah. Your brain is entirely male.
Why is it right? So why would it stand to reason that the one that signals the rest of the body is going to go through some transformation into a female by the time it gets there?
So what you're telling me is that if the brain is male, it doesn't matter what the rest of the body is, right?
Right. Yeah, because I've always been a male.
And so what you're telling me, hold on, I just want to double check here. So what you're telling me is that if somebody has the brain of a female, but their body is if somebody has the brain of a female, but their body is mismatched.
Somebody has the brain.
But their body is mismatched. Their body is the body of a male.
Okay.
But they have the brain of a female.
Can we clarify what you mean by somebody? Respectfully, you said somebody.
Yeah,
is it
a person.
Is it a male or a female?
A human has a human has the brain structures of a male, but the physical anatomy of a female.
And I'm sorry, he's got the chromosomes of what? XX or XY?
Let's say it's a mix. That happens sometimes.
That's come on.
It does. It's called chimerism.
Okay, but you could agree that no person has ever been born with fully functioning sexual organs. Two of them. Okay.
Yeah, we're not saying that. No, you have,
right.
So in this hypothetical, the person is they have all the brain structures of a male, right? But their entire physical anatomy, including their reproductive anatomy, their secondary sex characteristics, all of that is female.
And again, this person has to have chromosomes. Are they XX or are they XY?
The chromosomes are XX. Or actually, let's say the chromosomes are XY, but they have androgen sensitivity disorder.
XY, then they will not be of the nature to get pregnant at all.
No,
they will not menstruate.
So there are people with androgen insensitivity disorder who can get pregnant.
Again, outliers are outliers.
No, but we're talking about this is the hypothetical. We're talking about such people.
Okay.
So such a person who has XY but has completely externally identical female, female body parts. No, completely female.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But they have the brain structures of a male. Mm-hmm. They develop. They become. They develop, and they look like somebody who is a female as they get older. Are they a man or a woman?
It's a man, it sounds like. I mean, you just said they're
but they
XY
can get pregnant.
Chromosomes. Wait, how can they? Well, you said XY chromosomes, though. How can they get pregnant?
Yeah, Swyer syndrome.
Oh, good one. I don't know about that. Can you?
Swyer syndrome is it's
a far outlier.
Yeah. But I mean, it's 1 in 80,000 births, and so there's something like 100 million people in the world. Sorry, I'm getting that number wrong. Something like 100,000 people in the world.
8 billion.
Yeah. There's something like 100,000 people in the world who have this. So that's a lot of people. Mm-hmm. They have XY chromosomes, but they have all of the reproductive capabilities of females.
Mm-hmm. And just run the numbers. Run the numbers for me in the chat. What percentage of the 8 billion people?
It's 1 in 80,000.
Okay, so and what percentage is that? Let's have a. So what percentage of people alive on the
let's say it's 0.0. Let's say it's 0.0001. Yeah, but I'm just asking you, for this person, are they a man or a woman?
I think this is a woman that has a developmental disease.
But they have
or
XY
dysfunction.
chromosomes, and they have the brain structures of a man. I thought it was
Okay.
what the brain was doing
so
that
I'm
was
sorry.
important.
Yeah, that sounds like a male. Okay.
They have XY chromosomes.
Okay.
They have the brain structures of a man.
And okay.
But they can get pregnant.
Okay. All right. And what through
Is
which,
this person a man or a woman?
Through which entry do they get pregnant?
They have female anatomy.
Okay. All right.
Are they a man or a woman?
That's going to be a man.
So
with,
a man can get pregnant?
Yeah. And there's cases of this.
Wait, are you telling me that a man can get pregnant?
I'm saying that man could get pregnant, sure.
So there are men who can get pregnant? That's crazy talk.
It is. No, it truly is. No, come on.
But you're saying that this is possible? How could that be possible?
So you're telling me there's a chance.
So you know what? It sounds like maybe it's 10 or 15% of people on the left think that men can get pregnant. But you know what? At least one person on the right thinks that men can get pregnant now.
Yes. Wait, say that syndrome again. What was it?
It's called Swyer syndrome.
Can you spell it for me?
SWYER.
God, man, that would be the guy that was named after. Can you imagine?
It's not that hard to spell.
No, I'm just saying, like, to have that disease named after you.
Why? He probably discovered it. Or she probably discovered it. Who knows?
Yeah. Oh, he, she, who knows? Oh. Well, this was a lot of fun, sir. I appreciate your time.
I'm glad. Look, you don't got to be a part of the alphabet mafia in order to be an ally. Thanks for being here, bud.
Oh, I'm also an atheist. I'm very, I'm very in line with you.
Have a good one, Anthony.
Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
Y'all, we got there. We got there. We brought an ally over. We did it. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Let's do some super chats. From Kaplerds, with the $10, the PNW has had zero snowfall this entire winter and already has small fires all over. I wonder how many acres of forest have to burn before climate change is real. Oh no, it's just natural. It's natural. This is normal. From Grimmy with the $5, plant more trees. Arizona has lost roughly 20% of its total tree coverage since 2000. Yeah, that's interesting. That's also a thing that you could absolutely do. Yeah, plant more trees. Planting trees is good. Trees eat CO2. From Grimmy with the $5 again, children do not need permission to be themselves. They're not property. That's true. That's true. Children are not property. They are just, they have guardians, but they're not property. From Ekipo with the €2. Congrats, guest, for coming out. Happy Pride. Indeed, happy Pride. It is June, after all. And from Gretchen with the $3.11. Welcome to Clipville, asshole. Unbelievable. Yeah, that'll. I mean, look. At least he was jolly. And we did bring him over. So, definitely a good idea. Let's make sure that we don't have any guests on Discord. We do not. Sorry, just checking some things. We have some more super chats coming in. From Daniel Cousino with the 5 Canuck bucks. I can't get over him asking, what entry do they get pregnant? Yeah, I mean, like, it seems like he struggled a little bit with this idea that, like, you can have a female anatomy while still having XY chromosomes. But I'm not here to judge. L'Oreal Ashley sending 5 Dr. Blitz gift memberships. That means that 5 verts, these are people who are watching YouTube on the vertical stream, now have access to the special members only Discord channel. They now have access to the debate notes, which has all of this, links to all of this stuff that I've been talking about on there. And they now have access to the emojis that they can send in the YouTube chat. So everybody give L'Oreal a big ol' thanks for sending those 5 memberships over. Keep in mind, it's only like $4 or $5 a month. So if you want to get access to those perks, consider doing it. It's a good way to support me. It's a good way to keep consistency, and it gives me some reliability, so I can reliably check how much income I'm getting, so I can, pay my bills and things like that. So it's a great way to support me if you want to. You can also become a super fan on YouTube. You can become a subscriber on Twitch. We're paying attention to you, Twitch. In fact, you can use your Amazon Prime free subscription on Twitch, and that helps me too. everybody gets access to the same stuff, but if you are on TikTok or on Twitch, we have to manually approve you on Discord to get access to all of those things, which is fine. We can do it. You just construct a ticket, and then we can give you access to the channels, which have access to the notes. And from helping MAGA deconstruct with the $5, is there a name for the phenomena of why MAGA can't grasp and engage in a hypothetical? Transphobia equals MAGA 100% of the time, rock hard for Doug, and simply wet for Sharon. Indeed, not being able to engage in a hypothetical is like generally a sign of, I don't know if I want to say lower intelligence, but like considering hypotheticals is a sign of being able to critically evaluate positions, right? And somebody said to check Cash App, which I will do. I will do pronto. Checking Cash App right now. From we got a few different things from Cash App. So we have that's not what I want. We have from Sylvia Kitchen with the $25. Very, very generous of you, Sylvia. For Science is Life, keep up the good fight. I will do my best, Sylvia. Absolutely, I will do my best. I appreciate you. And from Liam with the $5 on Buy Me a Coffee. You sent that message already. The PNW has had zero snowfall this entire winter and already has small fires all over. I wonder how many acres of forest have to burn before climate change is real. Absolutely, it's a real thing. And I appreciate you, Liam, for sending it twice. Just making sure that I'm not missing anything. Because my phone just duded. Oh, Grimlock sent another $10 for because I can. 'Tis hot, so extra hydration. Okay, yeah, I'll drink some more. And from Gordon Loves Science with the 5 Dr. Blitz Debunks gift memberships, sending them out to the anonymous watchers. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Gordon, so much for the gift memberships. 5 more people just got access to the debate notes, got access to the members only Discord channel, and got access to the emojis. So big W to Gordon Loves Science. And yes, he did indeed say that the vagina is an open wound, which is like a crazy thing to say. Like if that's the case, then any hole in your body is an open wound, including like the urethra on the male organ, which is crazy. Like it's obviously not an open wound. It's not a wound at all. All right, let's bring up Not Jay. Not Jay, how's it going?
Hey, Dr. Blitz, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Not Jay, are you MAGA?
No. I am conservative.
Okay. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions before we jump in?
Sure, go ahead.
So first, do you think that humans are the main cause of climate change, if you think that climate change is happening at all?
I don't know.
Okay, that's a fine answer. Do you think that the vaccines that we typically give to children, like infants, toddlers, these are like the MMR vaccine, you know, the hepatitis vaccines, do you think that these are generally safe and effective?
I don't know.
That's a fine answer.
You know what? The only thing that makes me nervous, like the idea of a vaccine, like you take a dead or a dying virus, inject it into somebody's body, your body's able to easily attack it and therefore gives you immunity. That's a great thing. The thing that worries me a little bit is I've heard that there are preservatives that they put into them that can be toxic. I've also heard that, you know, me being born in 1950, I got a quarter of the vaccines that kids get today.
Yeah, I mean, we've developed new vaccines for diseases that we didn't have vaccines for before. But
yeah,
but we can get into that. Just one more question.
Yeah.
So do you think that humans evolved from non-human ancestors?
No idea.
Okay. Well, look, being unsure that's a totally fine answer. So I can explain what my background here means, just so then to set the tone of the conversation.
I know who you are.
Well, but I mean specifically this topic.
Oh, all right. Go ahead.
Yeah. So when I say MAGA, I'm not referring to individual people. I'm referring to the kind of the political movement as a whole. Think of like what the modern Republican Party is. With a few exceptions, most of those people are going to be Trump aligned, are going to be, you know, they're the kind of people who would wear red hats. Think of Marjorie Taylor Greene before she had her falling out, right? So that's what I mean by MAGA. And by anti-science, I mean something very specific. I mean that the political movement disregards or rejects or delegitimizes scientific consensus that is politically inconvenient. And it also seeks to undermine the institutions that produce the scientifically inconvenient research. So that's what I mean by anti-science, and I'm making the claim that MAGA is anti-science. Do you disagree?
I don't know.
Okay. Why do you want to join us?
I don't know that those things are true, because I care about what's true. And, you know, you were saying something about a science board.
Yep, the National Science Board. Yep.
Yeah. And why did they get fired?
That's the thing. They didn't. Nobody knows.
Okay.
We have the text. We have the text of the emails. In the emails that were sent to these people, no reason is given. It just says effective immediately. Your position has been terminated, or something like that. Something to that effect.
I mean, I think in general that the government is wasteful by design in its spending. So that's number one. Number two, I think that there's been a lot of waste that has been uncovered, and I also think that, you know, for like the program, I forget what it was, the international program,
USAID.
Yes.
Okay, but we're talking about science here.
Right, but I'm just talking about government in general. I think does a bad job at most things.
Okay, can you give me a better example of how, like, how do you think we should fund research into?
I think in the free market that there are certain.
Please, I was in the middle of giving an example. So how do you think that we should fund research into the habitats of sub 6,000 meter aquatic environments? How should we fund that research? Like as a country, should we do it privately? Should we do it individually? Should we do it via the public? Should we do it via, like, what should we do?
Well, I would think that the first question that you would have to ask on what should be funded or what shouldn't be funded.
So that's the kind of thing that you would want to fund? You would want that research being done somehow, because that's the kind of thing that affects fisheries, right?
What I'm suggesting to you is that the first question that you would have to ask is, without government intervention, would this be funded? You get that question answered?
So the answer is no.
You would have to ask yourself.
So the answer is no.
What is the public interest of funding this particular thing, whatever it is?
Yeah. Knowing more about sub 6,000 meter ecosystems in, say, the Pacific Ocean influences the behavior of the kind of fish that we fish. And so knowing the ecosystem of the ocean is going to help us be more productive in our fisheries, help us make sure that we're not overfishing, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So there is a public interest.
So there's a definitively correlated reason, very practical reason to these studies of 6,000 meter underwater, whatever.
Yeah, let's say so. I mean, this is a hypothetical, of course, but let's say so.
That should be funded.
Okay, how should it be funded?
Well, if the market doesn't take care of it,
which it won't.
The government should step in and fund that.
Okay. So that's what the NSF does. They fund things that are in the American public interest. So why was the NSF board fired? Why was the NSF's budget proposed to be cut in half?
I can only assume that the decision makers at the time thought that the directed funds weren't being directed in the most efficient way given limited funds. That's one. Or that somehow by statute, these positions did not have enough either oversight, or there wasn't enough input from Congress, the president, whoever, to be able to decide who put those in there. Because a lot of times, like, I'm not a scientist.
So I can answer that question explicitly. So the NSF was formed. Sorry, go ahead.
What I was going to say is that the vast majority of the public, including politicians, are not scientists.
Yep, that's true.
So we really have to put a lot of trust into the scientists we would put in these positions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's got to be some mechanism where collectively Congress, the United States people can decide, are these people fit to direct funds in a way that is efficient and also in the public interest. And there are certain things, you'd agree, Dr. Blitz, that are more important in a practical sense than others. That's not to say that they're not both valid scientific endeavors. Like
so I just want to answer your question before we move on to a different topic. So the NSF was founded in the 1950s, I want to say, and as part of this was instituted by statute. This was a law passed by Congress, and as part of it, the NSB, the National Science Board, is intended to be an independent advisory committee that makes these decisions. The point is to be independent. They're supposed to be politically independent. In fact, the point is to have them not be subject to the will of the population. Because
is that possible?
Sorry, is that well? Yeah, I mean, at least it's been working for the last 70 years. Well, up until April anyway. Like this is like we've been funding science really well, and we've been making, like, we were the scientific capital of the world for a reason. So yeah, I mean, not only was this successful, it was working, and the goal was to make it so that these scientists, these are not nobodies. These are luminaries at the top of their field. These are the most the top tier scientists in the country that are appointed to these positions. They are appointed by presidents. They rotate every 6 years, and so they're staggered 2 years. So 8 of them go every 2 years of the 24, and then they're appointed by the president through like the normal means. And the goal is for them to be an independent advisory board that makes recommendations about how we should direct scientific funding. That's like their whole thing, and so. Yeah, they're supposed to be independent. They're not supposed to be subject to the whims of the people, because the whims of the people aren't necessarily reflective of how we should be directing scientific funding. Because scientific funding is often proposed on a scale that is far broader than what the individual is concerned about. And I can give you an example.
Well, Dr. Blitz, I wasn't suggesting that the public, that these people should be subject to the whims of the public or politicians. All I'm suggesting to you is, well, then I misspoke. What I was suggesting to you is that I don't think that anybody comes to anything without certain prejudices, without certain preconceived notions, without certain stances. And I think that, the judging of who's going to be, because there's never going to be anybody that's truly impartial, but I think the judging of, is this particular person an impartial, close to as impartial as we can get at the time, should be something that the Congress has a say. Is this person?
Well, so they are appointed by the president, right?
Do they serve at the pleasure of the president?
Sorry, what?
Do they serve at the pleasure of the president?
In the sense that they're in the executive branch, yeah, of course.
So that anybody in the executive branch is under the purview of the president, therefore the president can fire whoever they want? Yeah, they can. It doesn't mean that they should. If the goal is to be independent, then like that's why it happened, because he's legally allowed to do it. But the point is that it was instituted by statute that there's supposed to be 24 independent, scientists, engineers, these types, who are the head or who are the members of the National Science Board. That is the intention by statute. That is what the law says. And so they're supposed to be independent. So firing them for being not independent, firing them for being independent, for not agreeing with the political whims of whatever executive branch is in power, goes against the intention of the statute. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I would agree with you.
It's also anti-science generally.
If they were being fired for not being, if they were being fired because they were being independent.
Keep in mind, 6 of them were appointed. I think somewhere between 6 and 8 were appointed by Trump. So
yeah, no, I get it. My question to you is that, you're saying that they were fired because they would not be subject to the whims of the current political party. But I'm asking you, how do we know for a fact that, and this isn't me trying to prove you wrong, Dr. Blitz, this is me saying, what is the evidence, one way or another, that they were either they were as close to impartial as they could be, or that they were corrupted somehow and were directing funds based on somebody else's political whims? Or their
so what we can say is we can make an inference. We can make an inference to the best explanation, if you will. So what we can do is we can look at other actions that are being taken by the Trump 2, by the second Trump administration.
Well, I got one question before I forget.
Yeah, sure.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'll forget if I don't ask this question. Fine. Are these projects to which they direct funds, and how they direct the funds, and how much they direct these funds to these various scientific projects, Are they top secret that we couldn't go and
No,
look at them?
they're all like as part of the requirement of getting an NSF fund, your data has to be publicly available, and that kind of thing.
Why would we need to make an inference then?
Oh, because we don't know why they were fired.
But I'm just suggesting to you that if we can go and look at,
you can.
To me, instead of making an inference, I think the most logical thing to do would be like, well, how are they spending the money and where they were directed?
So what you can find is that they basically made no changes. Like it's basically the same that it's been for the last 10 years or so. Obviously more of it was directed towards AI than it had been in the past, but it's like a new thing, so of course it's going to be the case. And so basically nothing was different. Nothing was, in fact, nothing was different under Trump 1 as it was under Trump 2, but he didn't fire everybody under Trump 1.
The status quo could have been wrong for the past 10 years, 20 years, whatever.
I mean, but the point is our scientific funding hasn't really changed, and it's not this specific. Like, if it were the case that these people were just being corrupt or apportioning money incorrectly, if they were basically doing it in the same way that it was 10 years ago when it was a completely different national science board, then that means that you're implying that for some reason no president has appointed a good member of the national science board for the last however many years, which would be very, very strange and would be like kind of bordering on conspiracy territory. But what we can do.
The projects 10 years ago are exactly the same as they are
exactly
today.
The same, but the distribution is the distribution of money to different branches of science, for example, is basically unchanged. The distribution of the kinds of projects that are done is basically unchanged.
For example, if you had, let's say it was going to, making engines, internal combustion engines more efficient, but the money would be better spent investing in alternative engine technology. But you see what I'm saying is that if it's going to the same,
the thing is we can actually go look. So there are a lot of grants. There's on the order of and we can, and I'm going to tell you about this. So on the order of there's on the order of 10 to between 10 and 20,000 grants that have been awarded historically. That's been the average. Now in 2025, in March of 2025. Under Trump's direction, or at least the direction of the head of the National Science Board, who's a direct Trump appointee, 4,000 of those grants, roughly, got just completely canceled, and that's illegal, by the way. And this went to the courts, and it turned out that it was illegal. But they just canceled roughly 4,000 grants, just shut off the funding, even in the middle of projects, right? In the middle of grant periods, they just shut off the funding. And we can go look at what projects were shut off, and these were projects that had the word. And this is hilarious, projects that if you did a control F to search the proposal for the word diversity in it, such a project would have been canceled. Now, can you imagine why that might be a problem?
Yeah.
Okay, why might it be a problem?
Well, because diversity means a lot of things. I'm guessing that whoever did this, their intention was to root out DEI initiatives within government.
Yep.
And that is.
But what did they end up doing?
They probably had some things that I don't want to say fall through the cracks. That's not the right word. But they had collateral damage.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's
anything involving the word biodiversity, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying.
And those things got canceled too. So clearly what was happening here is that they were targeting. Also, this was a thing. Thank you for the reminder. They did Control F for trans. And so turns out trans fat, transgenic. Those got cut too. So what they were doing is they were obviously cutting things for a the grants that were cut were politically motivated, clearly, because they were trying to target transgender people, DEI stuff. This is politically motivated, of course. And they weren't being responsible with the things that they were cutting.
Hold on 1 second. Okay, I want to stay away from the trans topic.
That's fine, but I mean, clearly that was why transgenic mice showed up in the cut list, right?
I had a different understanding of that, but let's get back to that.
But what I'm saying is that the motivations here are clearly political. Otherwise, they wouldn't have accidentally cut things that say biodiversity in them because it says diversity in it, right?
Yeah, hold on 1 second. I'm trying to gather my thought here.
Sure, go ahead.
As far as DEI goes, okay, let's say you've got limited funds and you can give limited grants. If the priority is low on the DEI side, what would be wrong with redirecting funds to to other projects, curing cancer, for example?
So, do you understand? Maybe I should clarify. So, when you're writing a proposal, under the Biden administration, it was heavily suggested that whatever your research proposal is, this is common, by the way, across the world. It's not just a US thing. You usually have like some sort of segment in your proposal that you send. It's like a section where it's like, what are the social impacts that you're going to do for this, whatever research it is that you're doing? What are the social impacts? How is that going to make the world better? Or how are you going to improve education? How is this going to affect everybody?
Yeah.
And so you'll have your normal research proposal, which, we're going to investigate the XYZ gene in this cancer type to try to figure, whatever the proposal is. And then at the end, they'll have a social impact section where they say, we are going to, as part of our outreach to try to spread awareness about our research project, we are going to engage in outreach to underfunded youth schools, and we're going to send some scientists to go give science lessons or whatever, right? Like, that's the kind of thing that will end up in these outreach or in these social impact sections. And so under Biden, a lot of these research proposals, because DEI was popular under Biden, a lot of these research proposals would include some degree of diversity, equity, and inclusion as their social impact section, as saying, we're going to try to, we're going to host a seminar on increasing, as part of our outreach, we're going to host a seminar on part of increasing women's participation in chemistry research, or whatever it might be, because maybe women are underrepresented in chemistry research, whatever. And so that would be as part of the social impact. But that doesn't mean that they're doing research on DEI. It means that that's just like a secondary thing that they're using to try to make the world a better place on top of the research that they're doing. And so even if this was a cancer research study and they had that as part of their social impact part, it would have gotten cut.
Complete buffoonery. I think that's a horrible way to pick and choose what science programs are funded and what science programs are not funded. But what I would suggest to you, and I think it was buffoonery to decide which programs to cut with Control F. And I'm glad our American system of government worked, and it went through the court system and was struck down.
Here's the thing. It didn't work. It didn't work fully. So what happened is that the funding just got cut off.
Yeah.
And then it had to work its way through the courts. Right. And so, this was a long process. This took months. And by the time the courts reversed some of it, lots of people had been fired. People had moved on because they couldn't get paid. So we just lost scientists because of this. They're now flipping burgers because they needed a job instead of working in cancer research.
What I would suggest to you, Dr. Blitz, is that if anybody tries to do the same thing again, then there's precedent that these things would be resolved more quickly.
Yeah, so but again, this was the Trump administration doing this, and so
I agree.
This is and so
you think Trump would be the last one to try this?
He's the first one to try it.
You think he'll be the last?
I would hope not, or I would hope so.
So would I, but realistically, could somebody else do the same thing?
Sure. And the way that we would prevent that would be not voting for a MAGA person in the future.
Okay, but look, people get voted that I don't agree with. People get voted in that you don't agree with. But what's important in this is that it was tried, it was adjudicated, it was struck down. Yes, there are lingering effects, but if anybody does this again, will it get resolved more quickly? Because of
who knows? They'll probably who knows? It's hard to say. The courts are slow regardless. But anyway, look, all I'm saying is this is one example of politically motivated damage to science that's being done. We can also go look at specifically just the funding to the National Science Foundation is being proposed to be cut in half. So this is the entire funding. I think it's something like $8 billion, I think. Maybe it was $10 billion in 2024 or something like that. And they want to cut it's like $4.5 billion.
Right.
And so what that means is just you can conduct less research.
Yeah.
And again, we don't know why that was proposed. They don't give an explanation. They just say, we're just going to propose to cut it in half. But there's no explanation given. What this seems to be is a pattern of behavior of trying to basically hurt our ability to conduct scientific research for reasons unknown. And I think firing the National Science Board is just another example of that. of, oh, we want to like, so here, look, I'm speculating here. My speculation is that by cutting funding and by removing the NSB, well, now the NSB needs to be completely appointed, which means that Trump will appoint everybody on the NSB. We know that Trump is more interested in appointing sycophants now than he was 7 years ago, when during his first administration, because he got sick of people disagreeing with him. So I suspect everybody that will be appointed will be a Trumper, or at least, you know, conservative.
Is there a confirmation? Is there a confirmation process for these people?
I don't think so, but I can double check.
Because if there's not, there's your real problem.
1 sec.
That'd be like Trump being able to nominate a Supreme Court justice.
No, they're not. They're not appointed. There's no Senate confirmation process. No.
Don't you think there should be?
Apparently there used to be, but now there's not.
How is that? When did it stop?
Yeah, so the Presidential Appointment Efficiency and Streamlining Act removed Senate confirmation requirements for those. And when was this passed? So this was 2011.
Who was president?
Obama. The question is who was in the Senate? This is a Senate thing. This is not a law, right?
Gotcha.
At least I don't think so. I think that this is just a Senate rule. Yeah, so I mean, I agree. This is probably bad, but that doesn't make it okay to fire the NSB, right?
Well, I don't look. I don't know, because I don't know. Here's the thing: is
I'm sorry. I was in the middle of a thing. Before, so I was explaining what my speculation is. So what I'm speculating is that Trump's going to appoint 24 sycophants, and he's going to use the reduced budget to basically cancel all of the scientific research that he doesn't want to get done. So he's going to basically not fund climate research anymore at all. He's probably not going to fund biomedical research that involves anything to do with anything even remotely related to trans people. I suspect he probably won't. He probably will cut funding. He will probably ensure that funding doesn't go to anything really sociology related, anything really psychology related. He's probably just going to increase funding, basically divert all funding to like the hard sciences and AI. And I suspect that that's probably what's going to happen, and that's why he fired the NSB. Because with the current NSB, that just never would have happened. So that's why he's cutting funding. That's why he fired the NSB, because those things that were being funded are politically inconvenient. That's my speculation. Now, of course, we don't know if that's going to happen. He hasn't appointed the NSB yet. The 2027 budget proposal hasn't been confirmed. But it's looking like that's the administration's goal, right?
So if everything you say is true, all of your speculation is true, okay, I would agree with you that that is all bad. But I wouldn't say that the real problem is not Trump. The real problem is not Congress.
What's the real problem?
The real problem is that there is not a mechanism in place to make sure that this can't happen. That one man can't appoint by his own judgment these people without any type of oversight. Our government is.
I agree that in hindsight we need better guardrails, but these were not things that needed guardrails in the past.
So what's going to happen is, that the American people will decide whether this is a good thing or this is a bad thing. They'll decide what priority that they should give it. And
so I'm here trying to convince people that this is a real priority that we should really be worried about. It is devastating to the American stage. It's devastating to the American or the globe's view of America is being devastated as far as science is concerned. Like it used to be, and this is a really interesting statistic. This came about in like the middle of 2025. You can just check how many American scientists, like American born and bred scientists, are applying for jobs overseas compared with how many foreign scientists are applying for jobs in the United States. And it used to be, before 2025, it used to be that more foreigners were applying to work as scientists in the United States than American scientists were trying to leave the United States to work elsewhere. That flipped in 2025. We're losing scientists because of this.
The point that I'm trying to make to you is if you're trying to make this a priority, what I would suggest to you is that I think that if and again, I'm not your boss and I'm not any great scientist or anything like that, but where I can, as a conservative, find common ground with you is that government should be limited. Its powers should be limited. There should be checks and balances. And if you had those checks and balances in place going forward, that this wouldn't happen again.
I mean, there are checks and balances. Like impeachment is a good check, right?
Yeah, how easy is that to do compared to, hey, let's change the rules, let's put it into law that these people are appointed with confirmation and that there's some sort of...
The Supreme Court is also a good check, but the executive branch has just ignored Supreme Court rulings.
Well,
right?
Again...
Look, so the problem is not that we need better checks and balances. The problem is that we have an executive branch that found the cracks in our system and is exploiting them.
If you filled in those cracks, would any future...
There will always be cracks.
This
is why you vote for good people. This is why you vote for good politicians that won't exploit those cracks. That's the whole point. That's what we're supposed to do. The responsibility of Americans is to choose our leaders wisely, right? And in 2024, the Americans did not.
I think our responsibility is to make sure that we can protect ourselves from the people that we vote for. Because
we shouldn't need to protect ourselves if we vote for people that we like.
Dr. Blitz, nobody is an angel. Nobody is going in there with 100% pure...
You don't need to have pure intentions. You just have to follow the rules. You just have to be, willing to have decorum, right? This isn't look, what you're saying is that Trump's not the problem, our system's the problem, that Trump could take advantage of it. Nobody else, we didn't have a problem with anybody else. Nobody else was taking advantage of it in this way. This is a uniquely Trump issue.
You don't think when Biden tried to cancel all student debt that he was overstepping his power?
He was, and then the Supreme Court overruled him, and then they had to stop.
Yeah, again.
And so that's an example. That's an example of the checks working.
What about when
Trump is just ignoring the Supreme Court?
I think Obama at one point targeted for assassination. I could be wrong. I don't want to say this without looking it up.
Yeah, you're talking about when Obama drone struck an American citizen in like Kuwait or Yemen or something like that. Yeah, that's bad. I agree. That's bad. He should be held responsible.
Absolutely. But that's all I'm suggesting to you is that now look,
so you want stronger checks and balances is what you want, more regulations, which, I'm fine with.
I think for this particular issue that there are cracks that could be filled. Okay. There are cracks.
But the thing is the executive has to have power. The executive branch has to have power. And so there are other examples I can give you. It's not just appointing the NSB. The director of NASA is a Trump appointee, right? I think the director of NASA is Senate confirmed. The director of NASA is trying to shut down a satellite. It costs basically nothing to run it, but if you shut down the satellite, then it can't measure the global carbon dioxide that's present in our atmosphere. And it turns out carbon dioxide data is politically inconvenient for MAGA. Yeah. And so they're just turning off the satellites so we don't get that data anymore. That's a Trump appointee that was Senate confirmed.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with what I mean.
This is a trend. This is not just like a one-off thing. Across all of the institutions that we have, if those institutions have R&D sectors, those R&D sectors are being slashed.
Yeah, I mean, look, I this is the first I'm hearing about this satellite with the carbon, but my first question...
It was called the Carbon, what was it? The Carbon Observatory? Carbon Orbital Observatory, I want to say. Just hearing that information... Orbiting Carbon Observatory is what it's called.
Yeah, my first question, if I heard that information for the first time, which I am, would be, are there other methods that we can gather that data? Are there other countries gathering data that we are...
Nope, other countries relied on it.
Somehow, yeah. So, I mean, look, there's just a lot more to it than I can say this is bad without knowing the information. Is there a more efficient way that we could go about doing that?
Why would you shut down a satellite that basically takes $0 to run? It's already there. Why do you need it to, it's already up there. It's already in orbit.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know why? Because they don't want the carbon data to be available.
And that is a reasonable explanation for why they did that.
In fact, not only is it reasonable, we basically have that language word for word.
Yeah.
Like we know why they shut it down, and I can pull up the let me see if I know it's somewhere in my list of things. Orbit, it's Satellite. Yeah, here it is. This was last year, by the way. This was August of last year. Quote, so the reason why it was being terminated is, quote, to align with the president's agenda and budget priorities.
Okay.
What part of the president's agenda is being aligned with here?
The budget priorities?
Well, it's the agenda and budget priorities. So these are separate things, right?
Yeah.
So what's the agenda part here? And keep in mind, this basically costs nothing to run.
Look, I had to make a guess, which it would just be purely a guess, that either you're right and that there is an agenda to be anti-science and pro-business or whatever, or maybe there's something else to that. You know, like I said, I know it says agenda and budget, and you can't get angry. You know, like if you look at something and you question it, you're like, well, maybe there's something else to it. You can't get angry if other people say, well, I'm looking at this, but there might be something else to it. Maybe it could be small, you know, the agenda is small government. You know, maybe the agenda is...
This is small government. It already exists. It's cheap. It's cheap to run.
Yeah.
It doesn't require a big team to run.
Yeah. Again, I don't know how much it is.
It's about $16 million a year.
Okay. $16 million is a little bit of an amount.
It is. Oh boy. So there's roughly 340 million people in the country, right?
Yeah.
So $16 million a year is it's like $20.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. No. I did my math wrong. I divided in the wrong direction. It's like 5 cents per person.
Okay.
It's 5 cents per person per year.
And there's a lot of stuff that the government does, and those nickels can add up quickly.
Yeah.
Look,
I mean, look. You could just to give you an example. You could fund this thing for 7 years for a single new like F-15. 7, and by the way, the reason this is not just a climate change thing. This because it monitors it doesn't monitor carbon emission. Well, it does, but it monitors how much carbon there is total, carbon dioxide. It can be used to track where the carbon dioxide is on the Earth as a function of time. So it flows and it moves in different ways, which is very helpful for knowing how well crops are growing, because crops absorb carbon dioxide when they're growing well. And so you can monitor the efficiency of various farming techniques using this data. You can monitor all sorts of very useful things that are not just climate science related. But it turns out it's also useful for studying climate science, and so I guess it went onto the chopping block.
You're giving me these justifications, and I'm not disagreeing with you. All I'm suggesting to you is that there may be something more behind it other than an anti-science agenda.
So then why is it that the R&D budgets for basically every single organization, federal organization, is having its R&D budget slashed?
Let me ask you a question. If this satellite benefits us, but it benefits 100 other countries, why aren't they chipping in?
We were the first ones to launch it.
Why aren't they? If they're getting the data, why aren't they chipping in?
Why aren't we chipping in for all of the data that we get from the Japanese weather satellite? Because generally, science is supposed to be internationally collaborative.
Yeah, you don't think that we bear the burden too much for other countries,
and we also reap the benefits, right?
Keeping them safe, providing them information.
We reap the benefits. We reap the benefits, and look, there's a reason why more people look. America's a small, as far as the global population is concerned, America's a small percentage, right? It's like 5% of the global population, or a little bit less, right? And yet somehow more Americans or more scientists were trying to come to America to do science than Americans were trying to leave. And so if it was just uniformly distributed, you would expect more American scientists would be leaving, because there should be more opportunities outside of the United States to do science. But there isn't, because at least up until 2025, America was where the best science was being done. And that's hugely advantageous to us, because it means that we get all the smart people in our country.
Okay.
We want smart people in our country. This is super good for our economy. It's super good for our well-being. It's super good for our technological developments. It's super beneficial. And so, yes, even if it's the case that the rest of the world benefits from the science that we do, we get so much more from having all of the scientists in the United States. We get so much more from it. And now they're leaving. and we're shutting down that science.
Without other countries chipping in for these things that benefit the world monetarily, you think that that's a fair deal?
Yes, absolutely, because we benefit from it too, and we get to control it, right? We get to choose where it points its camera.
Taking that logic out, for example, you think it's fair that we provide military security for Europe without them paying a dime to us?
Well, to be clear, they do. They pay more. Like, there are many countries in the EU that pay more into NATO than we do, as a fraction of their GDP.
I'm not NATO.
That's the money that we pour into Europe. We don't really pour money into Europe otherwise, besides NATO stuff.
I'm talking about the American military bases that are over there.
Yeah, those are that's for us, right? That's so that we can project power. That's not to protect them. That's for us.
That's to keep Europe stable.
It's not to keep Europe stable. It's to keep any fighting that happens over there instead of over here.
You don't think military bases are over there to stabilize Europe?
No, it's part of American imperialism. It's not this is not benefit. We're not being a kind benefactor. We're there to project power.
I'm not saying there isn't self-interest in it, but I'm saying to you
the reason why self-interest.
We haven't had another European war like we've had in the past.
We have one right now.
Where in Europe?
Ukraine.
Well, all right.
Well, this is the biggest land war in Europe since the 1940s.
Yeah, I give you that. You're right. Okay.
Look, my point is we benefit so much from having lots of science in the United States. Like you and I, just we benefit. And
I agree with you.
And the Trump administration is dismantling that. And I've had colleagues who have taken jobs, at least one colleague, who has taken a job in China because their department here in the United States was getting defunded. They weren't going to get fired, but they were losing funding. Their department was shrinking. And they were offered a better job in China to work at a university there, to do their research there. That's devastating for the United States.
Yeah, we went down a tangent. What I wanted to talk to you about was the NSB board and the fact that it is a dangerous thing that one man can hire and fire without any oversight, without any confirmation, without any checks or balances. That's really everything else we could have completely separate.
But look, that's not the only thing. Look, yeah, we could fix that. We could reverse that Senate thing that happened. Absolutely sure. There's 100 other things that Trump has done that are well within his rights as of the executive branch. That there's nothing that we could do to stop that from happening besides getting rid of Trump.
There aren't laws that Congress could enact to limit the power of the executive branch for those things.
Yeah, I mean, like, Congress did do that with the EPA, right? Congress said the EPA is an organization, or it's an organization that exists. And then I think, didn't Trump just basically turn it off?
Don't know.
I heard about something. Yeah, didn't they have an obligation to spend a certain amount of money, but didn't they basically just redirect it all because they don't want to spend it on the things that the EPA was spending it on?
No idea. All I'm suggesting to you...
Yeah, they cut 23% of the EPA's staff. And, you know, so that's a big deal. But like, and the thing is, but the EPA has to exist by law. But you can still dismantle it from the inside, even if the EPA exists. You can just like basically make it ineffective.
All I'm suggesting to you is that if a president that would do this could be and has been elected, that it could happen again. And it could, right now, you know, it's the bell has been rung. All right. All I'm suggesting to you is that there's got to be a way to patch up these cracks.
These aren't cracks. Look, giving the executive power to control the three-letter agencies was intended, right? That was basically intended because otherwise those three-letter agencies would never be able to do anything. They would never be able to enforce the laws that Congress passes, because that's what the executive branch is for. It's the enforcement mechanism. So you have certain laws, and then like Congress creates the EPA with the directive to regulate environmental, basically regulate environmental destruction. That's the mandate, and then they say, look, we can't micromanage all of the things that should be done. That's the executive's job. And so the executive, this is working, in some sense, this is working as intended. We just have a bad actor in power who's using the working as intended behavior to dismantle all of our scientific progress of the last 70 years.
Yeah. And what I'm saying to you is that yes, I see what you're saying. This stuff can't be micromanaged. You have to put people in place and you have to trust them. But those people that you put in place cannot be appointed by one man.
We're talking about the president. The president is the person who's put in place.
Absolutely.
To execute the laws.
Is a servant of the people. And what I'm suggesting to you is that there are checks and balances in all other branches of government and for offices within the executive branch. If they do it for the Secretary of State, if they do it for
so the head of NASA,
Postmaster General,
the head of NASA was confirmed by the Senate.
Okay.
The person who discontinued that satellite was confirmed by the Senate.
Yeah. Then whose fault is that?
MAGA, because it was the MAGA Senate that confirmed him.
Okay, but this MAGA Senate wasn't democratically elected?
It was, yeah. Poorly.
Okay. So ultimately, who's at fault?
I mean, you could say Americans, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, and we shouldn't be doing that. We shouldn't be electing MAGA because we know they're anti-science. That's the point. That's the whole point of the live stream.
Yeah, but the point that I'm trying to make to you is yes, we shouldn't elect people that would do this stuff, but we also should put in, just because people are still going to speed doesn't mean we shouldn't have speed limits.
Look,
and would it be harder for this to be done with or without Senate confirmation and scrutiny of
Senate confirmation didn't stop the satellite from being decommissioned?
Not what I asked. I said, is it harder to do with one man or with a confirmation process?
You keep focusing on the NSB. The NSB is just one little piece of the anti-science statue.
Agreed, but I'm asking you, would it be easier to do this stuff at the whim of one man?
Yeah, of course it'd be easier. But this is like it seems like you're focusing on the NSB thing because there is a solution for that, right? You could pass a law so that the NSB can't be fired willy-nilly, right? That would absolutely be a thing. Sure, you could pass that law. There's 100 other things that are completely within the realm, with completely like rules as intended. Giving the power to the executive to do these things is intended. That's the intent. And people like yourself, I imagine that you voted for a conservative for your Senate elections for the last 4 years. If you vote, people like yourself are the people who are responsible. Like, unfortunately, that's the reality. Like, the senator that you voted for, I don't know where you live, so maybe the senator didn't win, but the senator that you voted for would have voted to confirm the NASA head that decommissions the satellite, right? Like, that's just the reality.
Yep. And it was a question why I voted the way I voted was a question of priority, what I thought was more important. But that's still off the topic. All I'm suggesting to you is that we should make this not so easy for the next person. What if they vote somebody in that's worse than Trump next time?
Yeah, we should just not. Well, it would be one good thing. We should make it so that convicted felons can't be elected president. That'd be a good place to start. Another good place to start would be just to increase our education, because we know that more educated voters, they tend to vote in favor of representatives and presidents that are more pro-science. So yeah, I mean, there are things to do, but these are being fought against by the Conservative Party in the United States because they know that this hurts them electorally, right? If you fund education, if you fund science, this hurts them electorally.
Yeah, somebody just in the comments said, "Why don't I put accountability on Trump? If these things were done, I put it square on his shoulders."
Okay, but what about all of the things that like he did do that are intentional behavior, right? Like the appointment of the NASA administrator who cut the satellite. That was intended behavior. So does Trump get responsibility for that?
Absolutely.
Okay. The head of the NSF, not the National Science Board, the head of the NSF is appointed by Trump and is also a Senate confirmation. That is the guy who decided to cut 4,000 grants that were then overturned. Like, cutting them was deemed illegal and is overturned by the Supreme Court. But this resulted in hundreds of scientists, possibly thousands of scientists, losing their job and not being scientists anymore. Do you put that on Trump?
Dr. Blitz, I'll put it to you this way. If, as a result of his appointments and the way that he did it with the NSB, with NASA, with the other agency that you said, any result of those appointments, good or bad, ultimately lands on his desk.
Okay.
The buck stops there. Plain and simple.
So we agree that the head of the MAGA movement is responsible for all of these anti-science things?
I will suggest to you that any decision made as a result of his appointments that he had sole influence over, at the end of the day, it's all on his shoulders. It's all on his desk. The buck stops there.
Okay, no, I understand. I heard that. So
yeah,
so he's responsible, and he is the head of the MAGA movement, correct? He's the figurehead. He's the leader of the MAGA movement. So it's true that the leader of the MAGA movement is responsible for all of these anti-science policies.
He's responsible for everything good and bad.
Okay, including the anti-science policies.
Including those policies. Right. Everything good and every
Those
policy.
policies that are anti-science.
Let's not even put a label on it.
No, let's definitely put a label on it.
Any policy enacted.
Including the anti-science ones.
Including ones that you consider to be anti-science, yes.
And which you would agree, like, for example, cutting funding to the NSF, dismantling the Orbit and Carbon Observatory, shutting down the National Center for Atmospheric Research.
Let me ask you this.
Cutting the NASA Science Division budget in half. All of these things, these are anti-science, right?
You make decisions without all of the information in front of you to make that decision.
What?
Do you make decisions without all of the information in front of you?
Sometimes when that information is not available, yeah. Sometimes you just have to make a decision.
Okay. All I'm suggesting to you is I do not know enough about what happened at NSB. I do not know.
The NSB is not the only thing. There's so much more.
Everything that you've mentioned, I have no idea about. Okay.
I have information. I can give it to you.
No idea. I can get it on my own. I have no idea about that information. Therefore, I can't make a decision one way or another. The way you're describing it and the information that you've put out sounds completely reasonable that these were bad decisions. Okay. But I don't know if that's all the information that's out there. And it would be irresponsible of me to make a decision putting the label bad on something without.
We're not saying bad. Anti-science is not normatively loaded. I mean, it is normatively loaded because nobody wants to be anti-science, but it's not intrinsically bad to be anti-science. Maybe you're anti-science because you think that it's good to be anti-science.
Anti-science, then. I can't say if it's anti-science one way or another without all the information. I have incomplete information to draw.
Look, so I've given you a definition of what I mean by anti-science. This includes disregarding scientific consensus that is politically inconvenient, and it involves undermining or dismantling the institutions that produce that scientific knowledge. Yeah. Now, what I'm giving you examples of are clear as day examples of undermining those institutions. Cutting their funding is a way of undermining an institution.
Okay.
So this would be a clear-cut example of an anti-science policy.
Yeah, if they are the way you described, and that's the only motivation. Absolutely.
I mean, look, I'll just give you a second. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't lick Trump's boots. Okay, I'm not. The only reason why I vote for anybody else, because there's no perfect candidate out there in my mind. It's the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, it's and the thing that you're compromising on is America's scientific integrity.
Well, I'll be honest with you. It never occurred to me to think about these things because there were other things that were more of a priority. And good for you that you're bringing things to the forefront.
I'm just curious, what was a higher priority?
There were economic, security.
How did that work out?
Security, for me, great.
Economic security, like inflation's not hurting you at all? The tariffs aren't hurting you at all?
Not as much as it did a couple of years ago.
Gas prices aren't hurting you at all?
Well, gas prices are high because of a limiting event, not because of somebody limiting gas leases and being hostile to the oil and gas industry.
Pretty sure that Biden opened more drilling sites than Trump did, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, who caused that event? Who caused that temporary event?
My understanding was he severely limited the possibility for leases. He increased fees. He was openly hostile to the oil and gas industry, and that's why those long-term policies.
Yeah, but gas was still fairly cheap, right? So who caused the expensive gas right now?
It was up around $4 a gallon in New York.
And sorry, what's the gas price in New York right now?
It's high.
It is more than $4. I'll tell you that much. It's $4.40.
I drive a Tesla.
Okay. But clearly, when gas prices are high, everything else increases in price, right? Because
the gas prices are high right now because there's been a supply disruption.
Yeah, and who caused that supply? Who caused that supply disruption?
Iran.
And why did they disrupt the supply?
because they're fucking crazy.
Oh, so why didn't they disrupt the supply under Biden?
Because nobody called them out on their bullshit.
So it sounds like there's something that Trump did that caused Iran to react this way. By the way, it's Iran, not Iran. That's neither here nor there.
I'll say it the way I want to. I'll say it the way I want to.
That's fine. That's fine. So it sounds like it sounds like there was somebody.
You know what, Dr. Blitz? I'm not going to be kind or respectful to people that want to fucking kill me. Sorry.
Okay. But anyway, it sounds like that there was a person who was responsible for
several people
causing Iran to react the way that they did.
The ones that were chanting "Death to America" in the streets.
So it wasn't because so if I were to go look at gas prices and correlate them with when Trump decided to start bombing Iran, do you think that there'd be a correlation?
Absolutely, there's correlation. But Dr.
Do you think
Blitz,
that was what caused it? Maybe
it's quickly becoming contentious, but there's a more nuanced conversation there. I don't want to have this conversation.
It just seems like on as far as I can tell, all macroeconomic quantities just are worse under Trump than they were under Biden.
Yeah, and that's a matter of look, whatever you think about that, that's fine. I don't want to talk.
You voted for him for economic reasons, and it didn't work out. That's all I'm saying.
Security reasons, and I think that they have worked out, and I've got my reasons for that. I didn't want to talk to you about this because I'm not here to talk about Trump, and I'm not here to talk about MAGA.
Well, yes, you are, because the topic is MAGA.
Yes, but I wanted to suggest to you that it should be a priority to fill these cracks. That no one man, because it could be MAGA, next time it'd be NAGA or Schlaga or whatever nut job gets in there the next time that can do these things without restriction. That's the only thing you're telling me that it was our fault.
So why not vote for people who do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why not vote for people who want to increase regulation on these kinds of things?
That's a great thing to do, and I'm not saying that
which group of people, which political party tends to vote to increase regulations?
I don't think that we have to choose between voting for a good guy and also putting safeguards in place. Do you?
Well, yeah. So who are the people that put safeguards in place, generally?
Answer my question. Is it a binary choice? Is it a mutually exclusive choice? I either have to vote for a good guy or I have to put regulations in place.
No, you can absolutely do both. In fact, you should do both. Unfortunately, you did neither.
I have no power to put in regulations. That's the power.
You can vote for the people who will.
And if the other party if a party puts up somebody that I think overall is better than the other one, then I will.
And overall means interested in putting in place more regulations?
In certain areas?
Because you voted for the guy that his whole platform was decreasing regulations.
Do you think that I want a world without the USDA? That I have to worry I'm going to die the next time I eat my next hamburger?
But apparently you're okay with a world with like a minimally enforceable EPA, right?
No, not at all. Do you think...
Why did you vote for the guy?
I came from an area of the country that there was a Superfund site. And that but for the grace of God, I did not drink the water that affected that particular area. Otherwise, I could have died. Okay. I also...
Are you on Long Island, by the way?
What was that?
Are you on Long Island?
I don't want to say where I'm from or where I'm not from.
Okay. My brother lives on Long Island, and I just happened to know that there was like a ton of toxic waste that was dumped there in like the 80s. So that's the only reason I asked.
It's everywhere. Now, the other thing, too, is I also want a USDA or an FDA because, but for the grace of God, my wife did not take thimerosal when she was pregnant with one of our kids.
I'm glad. I'm glad that you're in favor of these things.
You think that people who are on the other side of the political spectrum want no regulation. Absolutely not. We want regulation where it's right and proper.
Like the EPA?
Like the EPA.
Okay.
Absolutely. Do you think that I want to be able to trust that when I turn on my sink and I put a glass underneath, that I can drink the water that comes out of that?
Yep.
I want to be able to walk out my door and breathe the air and not have to worry about asbestos particles. Absolutely. There are certain things.
What about the forestry department, or the Forest Service, rather?
Forest Service, absolutely. They cut fire roads in. They manage land. They keep things.
Yeah, they manage dead trees. They prevent them from crashing on buildings and stuff. Yeah, absolutely. So these are all examples. Like the guy that you voted for is dismantling all of these things. Like what? I don't know, man. It's those economic and security incentives. Those economic and security reasons must have been super important to explain why you would be okay with all of these other things being dismantled.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Do you trust well, I'll just take one that I have really no feeling or knowledge of. Okay. Do you trust the Forestry Service?
Generally, yeah.
You do?
Yeah, I think that like I'd trust them over some corporation.
Okay. You trust the 40. What do you base that trust on?
I mean, I generally if you have scientists working somewhere and you have scientists working at the Forestry Service, you also have what are they called? What's the kind of people who work on trees? There's a name.
Rangers?
Yeah.
Arborists.
Yeah, arborists. You'll have arborists, you'll have rangers, you'll have scientists working there. These are people who are the people who you should trust when it comes to taking care of forests. So yeah, I will implicitly trust them over a corporation. Yeah.
How do you know that those arborists, park rangers, scientists weren't hired by a George W. Bush or a Ronald Reagan appointed head of the forestry department, and that there is corruption inside of that department? How do you not know that?
Look, it's not 100% trust. I don't 100% trust anybody, but except maybe my wife. But the point is this: I trust them more than the alternative. I would rather have. So the Forest Service is, at least in principle, it is subject to the will of the people, right? We could vote people out who put in better people. There is some sort of oversight there. The government has oversight. The people have oversight on these things. And so if there is corruption, we will if there is people, bribing forest officials or whatever, that's the kind of thing that's illegal, right? And hopefully that would be rooted out and we would eventually catch it and fix it. If the alternative is letting a private corporation do this, bribery is legal for private corporations. That's just called being a company. Their job is to make money, so their job is to get paid to do stuff. So I would never trust, if the alternative is some sort of private entity, I would always trust something that is at least in principle responsible to the people over a private corporation for this.
Yeah, what if there were some appointees in the Forestry Service that didn't take direct bribes, but they had economic interest in a paper company or in a lumber company?
That'd be pretty bad. I wouldn't like that. That would be an example of corruption. It would be a worse example. You know what I would like even less? If it was a paper company that was responsible for managing the forests.
They actually do a pretty good job, from my understanding, but.
So if they do a pretty good job, why would it be a problem if somebody had an interest in a paper company to also be working in the Forest Service?
I was using that as an example. Maybe it was a bad example. I'm just saying to you is that your level of trust in the government is way higher than mine is.
Look, my point is that we need the forests to be managed, right? We need our trees to be managed by somebody. It's not going to be managed by individual people because it's just not the priority of a lot of individual people. People have lives. No. They have to go to work, right? You can't go out and manage your forest after your 9 to 5, right? So we need somebody to be doing this, whether it's a private organization or whether it's a public organization. And I would rather trust a public organization to do it than a private organization to do it.
As would I.
And so that's all I'm saying, that it's better to, if this is something that needs to get done, which we agree it does, better to have the government do it than have a private company do it.
Absolutely. Properly managed forest.
And so why, and this is, by the way, this is breaking news. It's only 5 days old. The Trump administration has proposed cutting the Forest Service Research Division to $0.
Don't know.
It's because it's science. That's why.
What is it? What does the research division do?
So these are the kinds of people that are evaluating the likelihood of fires, for example.
And nobody else
studying. I'm sure somebody else does, But if we
There's no
do,
replication.
if we do this less, if we allocate less funding to it, then it means that less of it gets done.
You ever heard of the law of diminishing returns?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so is it possible there's a certain amount of money above which there would be no significant benefit for us?
Yeah, and so we're currently saying that there's no significant benefit above $0, is what you're saying.
Do you know that $0 is 100% allocated towards that?
Well, So the 2027 budget proposal, in 2026, it was $309 million for the forest research, for the Forest Service research. No, it's the Forest Service that does it.
Yeah, no state agency, no other department in the government that researches these things, tracks them.
Not as far as I know of.
Okay, not as far as you know of, so there's the possibility that there is.
Yeah, why? Look, you just said that you'd rather have the government doing this than have private organizations. So just to be clear, the $309 million was going towards things like, and this is an interesting NPR article that I read that my brother sent me. So there was there's a program that was developed in Baltimore by the Forest Service Research Division, where rather than just paying thousands of dollars to cut down a dead tree and then basically move it into a landfill like what happens in some cities, instead they developed this program where they transport the trees to a sorting and recycling facility that turns them into furniture and flooring and other things. So they save thousands. They developed the Forest Service Research Division developed this program to save thousands of dollars per tree that they have to cut down. That's the kind of stuff that is being cut.
Okay. And what I'm suggesting to you is, do you know that these functions couldn't be performed in another department or at the state level?
Well, they weren't.
Okay.
I mean, look, there's as far as I can tell, there's no increase in funding anywhere else to compensate that. So this is just stuff being shut down. Like we have, so there are how many of these? Hundreds of research and development facilities that are owned by the Forest Service are being have been marked for possible closure.
If you could get the same results with $5 million instead of $20 million, what would be the smart decision?
There's no evidence that that's the case.
There's no evidence that it's not the case.
There's absolutely evidence that it's the case. I just gave you an example of a program that was developed because of this research funding that wasn't developed otherwise. It wouldn't have been developed like this is just, it didn't exist before and now it exists because of the program.
How do you know it wouldn't be developed elsewhere?
It wasn't developed elsewhere. That's the point.
Okay. Hey, a blind squirrel occasionally finds a nut. I'm suggesting to you are these functions only in the Forest Service, or might there be other departments?
Yes, there are no other departments that do forestry besides the Forest Service.
No other functions.
That's what the Forest Service does. They do the forests.
So you're saying in government there is no overlap of responsibility?
Maybe there is. You'd have to find examples, though. The burden's on you.
Yeah. Trying to think of one off the top of my head.
And by the way, here's something interesting. You want the law of diminishing returns. Yeah. So there's a facility that the Forest Service leases from the University of Hawaii, and they've been leasing it for since 2002, and the lease is valid through 2067. This is the kind of the Forest Service, I believe, is a part of the Department of Agriculture. So this lease was signed between the Department of Agriculture and the Hawaii Board of Land and Natural Resources. They're basically using a 30,000 acre lot to do some research on plants, basically. This is a research facility in Hawaii. Now, this is the kind of facility that's on the list of possible closures. How much do you think the Department of Agriculture is giving to the University of Hawaii per year to lease that land?
I'm going to be like Karnak right now, and I'm going to guess it's some ridiculously low number.
Okay, how low?
Really low.
Give me a number.
$1,000 a year.
Nope, it's $1 a year.
Yeah.
And that's on the list for possible shutdowns.
There may be a
Why?
mistake. There's probably a mistake there.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, I agree with you. It sounds like there could be a lot of mistakes.
It seems like there are a lot of mistakes with the NSF. Seems like there's a lot of mistakes with the Forest Service. Seems like there's a lot of mistakes with the with NASA. It seems like all this administration is doing with regards to science is making mistakes.
You're trying to get me to defend the cutting of science and the cutting of these departments, and I'm not defending.
What I'm trying to get you to admit is that this is obviously intentional.
Okay, I'll go ahead and I'll admit that.
Then we agree. MAGA's anti-science.
We agree, except you think the best way to go about this is to elect a good guy, quote unquote.
A better guy, a not shit guy. How about that?
A better guy, a not shit guy. Okay. And my contention is that no matter what you do, Dr. Blitz, there is going to be a president. How old are you? 30s?
I'm 32.
So 32. So you got another 50 years of life, at least. In those next 50 years, yes, absolutely. Fingers crossed. In those next 50 years, there's going to be somebody close to as bad or worse than their current president when it comes to these issues. It's going to happen. You have too much faith in people.
I don't know, man. This is the worst example that we've seen in U.S. history.
Everybody said that until the next person
no.
came
Like this is demonstrably true. If you look at our scientific research output, this is the worst it's ever been in U.S. history.
And before this guy, there was another one that was the worst at that point in U.S. history.
There's nobody even comparable. Actually, nobody even comparable.
Comparable, you mean?
It's dialect. Comparable is a valid pronunciation. I'm not going to be policed by somebody who hates me. No, I'm kidding.
I don't hate you. I'm trying to work.
I was just repeating back what you said about the Iranians, right?
I don't hate you. I am trying to work with you. I agree that these decisions, as you described them, are horrible decisions. I believe that the responsibility lands on our executive. All I'm suggesting to you is that trying to appeal to people to vote for a good guy is never going to work. It never has, and it never will.
I don't want a good guy. I want a better guy than this guy.
A better guy. A better guy is possible, but it does not matter.
It doesn't matter. If we hadn't voted for, if you hadn't voted for this guy, maybe this wouldn't have happened.
And you know what? I was not aware of all this stuff would happen, could happen. I couldn't see into the future, didn't know it was going to happen.
We were, by the way, just to be clear, people like me have been screaming about this since 2015.
Millions and millions and millions of Americans did not pay attention. And the next time somebody like this is voted in, it's going to be the same thing. Millions and millions and millions.
Why didn't you pay attention? This has been screamed from the rooftops since 2015.
Because that's a good question. I don't know why. To be honest with you, I had no idea this stuff was going to happen. I did not know. Okay.
Donald Trump called climate change a hoax in 2015, by the way.
What I'm suggesting to you is, is that instead of hoping we get a better guy in, let's bake something into the system. It doesn't work. It
doesn't work like that. And the reason I say that is because these are policy. This isn't something that should be impossible. This is how the system is supposed to work. The system is supposed to work that the president is able to appoint people to make decisions like this. And the point is we elected a shit president, and he's making shit decisions.
And there should be oversight.
There is oversight. The head of NASA was appointed and was confirmed by the Senate. That is oversight.
Okay.
And he still did the shit thing. The oversight. This isn't an oversight issue. This is a working as intended, and we have a shit person running the boat.
And so you don't think there are holes in our oversight?
I'm sure there are. Oversight is not the issue here.
You just said that he was able to, on a whim, hire and fire any member of the NS.
So firing them is within the purview of the executive branch. Hiring them without Senate confirmation, that was a law that was passed 15 years ago. And I agree. I agree. We should have more oversight there. But that is the one example that you can find where more oversight would have helped. That's it. The one example. And there's 100 other cases where we have the oversight and the shit thing still happened.
Yeah. I do not know that additional oversight of these department heads wouldn't be helpful.
What oversight? Okay, let me just ask you this, and then maybe we can call it here. What additional oversight would you suggest for the department head of NASA who made the decision to cut the orbiting carbon observatory?
How about have that person confirmed by equal numbers of opposition parties within the Senate, not a Senate as a whole, but a bipartisan commission to nominate that person.
So then nobody would ever get confirmed, right?
No, not necessarily. I would not say that. No. I think that there would be compromise.
Actually, let me check.
Things go from committee onto the floor is by a bipartisan committee. Things go from committee to the floor in that manner.
Well, so to be clear, the confirmation is all the senators, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just committee.
Yes, but I'm talking to you about any law has to go to committee first, and typically those are bipartisan.
This isn't an example of a law, though.
Yeah, but I'm just saying to put the law what would be preventing anything from them writing a law saying that for these department heads, a bipartisan committee with the input of the president nominates them. This bipartisan committee confirms and installs them. Where is there anything?
That could be quite good. The downside is that you would never end up with somebody who's appointed, and instead you would just have an acting head, which is what Trump did. He just had an acting head of the department for the entire time.
I think you're entering facts and not into. There would be there. I don't agree with that. I don't agree.
No, I mean, yeah. So every single Republican supported Isaacman. Isaacman is the head of NASA, by the way. Every single Republican voted for him. Only 16 of the 46 Democrats voted for him. So he wouldn't have been appointed. And I don't think that you would find anybody that, especially with how polarized we are today, you wouldn't find anybody who's able to get half of both parties, at least. The reality is that these things would stall because you would keep, each person would get rejected, and it would take. You'd have to try over and over and over again until you get somebody that both parties can agree on. And in the meantime, you would just have an unappointed or an unconfirmed acting head that would do these things anyway.
That's a possibility, but I don't think that's a likely possibility.
It's what happened, right?
I could in when the entire Senate was doing it.
Yeah. That's what happened. There was So which department was it? It was recent. It was under Trump. I think it was DHS had an acting head for it's DHS had an acting head for 440 days.
And how was he confirmed?
They weren't.
Okay, but do we have a permanent head of DHS in right now?
I can double check that. But acting heads are pretty common.
Dr. Blitz, just an unrelated question. I've got my, you see my avatar, not J186?
Yeah.
There's a little thing in the upper left-hand corner with a 1. What the hell does that mean?
The what? Oh, that means that somebody gave you a coin.
A what?
A coin. Somebody gave you 1 cent.
Do you want it?
No, it's just there. It's fine. You don't worry about it.
Now I got 2.
All right, I'm gonna let you go, Not Jay. But thank you so much for being here.
Do you want those?
You can't. It's fine. Don't worry about it. He's been on for a while, and I'm way over time, so I have to end the live stream. He can't give those to me. But anyway, let's read some super chats and we'll call it a day. From Papa Butters, with the $2, my wife lost her research job because of grant cut. Yep, this happened to a lot of people. This is super, super common. From Pat in the chat with the $5, current administration setting America back decades, but the Dow. Won't somebody please think of the Dow? Caller, you had an open book test. Yeah, we've been telling them this for a long time. From Pat in the chat again with the $5, we are in the middle of the longest, most excruciatingly drawn out "we're fucking told you so" of all time. Yeah, it's been 10 years running now, right? From Dr. Joe with the $10, very much appreciated. Generalizing all politicians or even all presidents is a false equivalence, tone deaf, and willful disregard and ignorance. Yeah, I mean, it's just not the case. There are people who are who would make better politicians than others, obviously. From Res Please with the $5. They say that the state of affairs of the US is thanks to, quote, the lesser of who evils, Trump, or of two evils, Trump? Give me a break. Yeah, no, definitely not. From Pure Natura with the 50 Swedish kroner, this guy votes. Remember that in November. It's not Trump, it's all Republicans. Gavin Newsom, J. Jones, 2028. Well, I don't know about Gavin Newsom. Dude hates homeless people, but maybe. From Pone Donkeys with the $5, Iranians say death to traffic during rush hour. Cons are so afraid of everything, I'd laugh more if I didn't also have to suffer their consequences. That's true. That's a fair point. From PK Phoenix with $5, have you ever thought about putting the MAGA hat on top of the profile picture for the person you're debating? I think it'd be funny and fitting. Oh, that's a good idea. I should do that. From Optimus Rhymes with the $2, Not Jay is really selfish for a Christian. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he was a Christian, but yeah. From Neck2 with the $2, FYI, Ian just went live. So glad you're back. No free clout. In this case, it wasn't free. But all right, let me just double check for Cash App and other things like that, and then we'll call it a day. It looks like we got nothing else, so that's good, guys. Let's go raid Ian. Not that Ian needs me to raid him, or raid them, but everybody head on over to Ian's live stream and just say Blitz sent us, or say Blitz raid. That's fine too. And spam. Here's what I want you to say. I want you to say Quanta. Quanta is losing the feud. Just spam that. Spam Quanta is losing the feud. When you get into Ian's live stream. All right, everybody. I will see you guys tomorrow, same time, same place. Until then, take care, everybody.